Chapter 1736. The World of Order. Speaking of which, the Void of Order was almost fully integrated. The news that brought about chaos 100 billion years ago had caused a huge storm in the Void of Order, so much so that 100 billion years later, the World of Order had undergone a huge change. Sure enough, Maple was right when he told that guy not to say a single word. Just that one sentence of his announcing to the entire Void of Order would cause a lot of trouble. They might even have to divert a part of their attention to the Void of Order. Just thinking about it gave Maple a headache. Now, the guy was here, the message was delivered, and the guy was chased away. No, he was really curious. Where did so many primeval heavenly gods come from? They had never missed any information about the Order Void, especially when they were guarding the second line of defense. They had increased their surveillance of the Order Void. At the same time, they also had the time to send some people into the Order Void to look for undiscovered worlds that could be used as power. So, they knew that an unknown force had suddenly emerged in the past 100 billion years and integrated most of the Order Void's power. If they were not mistaken, it should be the guy who came with one or two primeval heavenly gods. We felt a slight headache as he thought about these troublesome matters. I'll have to keep an eye on the Order Void for the time being. Who knows what those bastards are up to? They wouldn't go so far as to declare war on the Order Void, right? I Ching said, or being declared war. Jing Yun and Hui smiled bitterly when they heard that. It sounded like they were putting the cart before the horse. But to be honest, they were not particularly worried. In terms of combat power, if they threw Yun Nuashing out of the Order Void, the integrated Order Void would not be able to cause any big waves. But after all, it was the power of order. It was not to the extent that they would fight to the death. No matter what, they had to give others a chance. This was really an opportunity given to them because they belonged to the Order. But speaking of the Order, Jing Yun had an idea. Inheritor. Maybe we can borrow the name of the primeval heavenly god's inheritor. The Great Flag has fallen for more than 10 epochs. Now that you're raising a small flag, who cares about you? We shrugged and sighed. I've thought about this problem before, but I don't think it's feasible. It's not like it's the real heavenly god of origin, right? The inheritors were only the kind that received a lot of attention back in the day. If it were in our current era, it would be a problem for anyone to recognize even one of the 131 inheritors. Most people only know about the heavenly god of origin, and they only know about the heavenly god of origin's name and some of its concepts. As for the parts related to them, forget it. Oh, it's actually fine. Jingyin scratched her head and laughed. The 131 primeval heavenly gods will shine with the light of truth of the Void of Order. Hui! This was a plan to throw them out and flatten the Order Void. If they couldn't do it, then let Maple do it. In any case, there wouldn't be any pressure for him to do it. Destroying the abyssal death mist and the Order Void was the same. In Maple's mind, there was no difference. At this moment, I Ching suddenly remembered something and quickly stood up. That guy's companions are still outside. Throw them out. Since we've already thrown one out, there's no harm in throwing one more. Hui said with a wave of his hand. He didn't even need to think about it for half a second before I Ching rushed out of the hall, intending to throw them out. Let's observe the situation for the time being. Hui wiped his face a few times. If it's peaceful, then it's fine. If it's not peaceful, well, then we can't be the first to use the young man. The cost of using that strategic weapon is too great. Hui nodded vigorously to show his agreement. What cost is too great? The voice that suddenly sounded in the hall caused the two of them to tremble violently. They turned their heads to the place where the voice came from, as if they were convulsing. They saw a distortion in space, and Yun Nuashing's figure slowly appeared from within. He even yawned, and when he saw their stunned expressions, he repeated, "What do you mean you can't use it? What do you want me to do?" At this moment, Hui and Feng's hearts were instantly drowned by the word F***K. Hui still braced himself and said, "When did you wake up? What did you just hear?" "I just heard that you can't use me or something, or that the cost is too great." Standing in a desperate situation, Huey's mind suddenly became unimpeded as if he had eaten croton. A little inspiration came to his mind. He suddenly stepped forward and patted Feng's shoulder. He said earnestly, "Let's talk about the origin relic." We brought back a lot of origin relics from that world. Seeing that you're not awake, we said that we wouldn't use you first. Now that you're awake and your condition seems to be good, then let's hand it over. Eh, don't run. This matter really needs you to deal with. All of us have insufficient authority. He really ran away. Looking at Hui Jun's few words that made the young man's scalp tingle, and he ran away, Jing Yin couldn't help but clap her hands. Nonsense. You don't need to draft it. Wonderful. But you really made the young man run away. This matter of the origin relic really needs him to deal with. Why did he run away? Look at the direction he slipped away. He's gone to the observer dimension, probably to prepare in advance. Let's bring the things and hurry over. Actually, he wasn't really scared away by Huey's pile of origin relics. At that time, although he was half dead from exhaustion, his secondary soul was still there, so he still vaguely knew some things. He knew that the pile of origin relics would definitely press him into the void and rub him with all his might, so he was already mentally prepared. The real reason why he ran away in a hurry was, speaking of the origin relics, he thought of the observer space. When he thought of this place, he remembered that before they left, the space used a pot to steam. No, soak a ball. Yes, it was the ball that condensed the mark of the tide of chaos in the void. He had been running for a few days. He was afraid that when he went to the observer dimension, he would see that thing doing whatever it wanted in there. Yin Nuoxing rushed into the observer space, and the initial light instantly attached to his body. However, the entire space was quiet, and there was not even a black wind, which made him a little stunned. The huge cauldron was still there, and the cauldron was still bubbling with a rich origin energy, and it was even boiling a little. The ball was still floating in the energy, and there was no movement at all. Yin Nuoxing came to the pot and poked the ball with a Netherworld Ruin sword. There was still no reaction. Really? No one has been in the observer dimension for a few days. This guy's been staying here for so long? The little angel also jumped out. She looked at the big black ball floating in the pot for a moment. She even poked it with her finger. There's no change. It's the same as when we went out. Have you thought about what to do with this thing? She floated down beside Yin Nuoxing. She looked up at the void and said, I've been a little nervous recently. I have a feeling that something is going to happen again. Again? Yin Nuoxing shuddered. What's wrong this time? Is there something wrong with the abyssal death mist? Or is there something wrong with the superior body of the abyssal death mist? The little angel lowered her head. Her eyelids were drooping. There were some energy particles surging in her golden eyes. Maybe there's something else. Movement, Yin Nuoxing murmured, her scalp suddenly wet at those words. A movement that she could directly sense was something on the level of an earthquake in the void. Come to think of it, ever since 70% of the death shroud of the abyss had faded and all of its energy had been condensed, you seem to be able to sense the situation on the other side. The little angel sighed. It's probably because the degree of their activity has increased instead of decreasing. The remaining abyssal death mist in the lower plane has become even more active. The void controlled by them has diverted most of the void's energy to this side. Overall, the second line of defense is clearing out more abyssal death mist every day than the abyssal death mist can recreate. However, the number of abyssal death mist is too large. They are more unscrupulous because they have the support of a large area of the void. Yin Nuoxing heard this and let out a long sigh. She reached out and waved at the ball. She lifted the ball in front of her. Her 5 fingers touched the ball gently. She was silent for a moment. Troublesome, troublesome. I have to speed up again. Suddenly thinking of another thing, Yin Nuoxing raised his head and showed a knowing smile. Yuan Ji, if you don't have anything particularly important at hand, come to my space first. I have something to give you. The little angel looked at him, smiling, as he took out a triangular prism-like crystal from the pendant. She immediately understood. But it will take a long time, won't it? It will take some time. If you focus on dealing with this, it may take more than 10 years. This is still under the condition that I help to speed up. If you slowly deal with it while fighting outside, it may take thousands of years. After all, this thing is a little special. Yin Nuoxing held the crystal in her hand. Her eyes lit up as she stared at the crystal. While the second line of defense can still hold on for a long time, we should hurry up and deal with some special things as soon as possible. Phone, why are you running so fast? Huey's voice made Yunuashing shift her attention slightly. She felt that two figures were approaching from behind. Without turning her head, she pointed at the chaotic black ball in front of her. This thing, I put it here and forgot about it. Can I not hurry over to have a look? Hui and Jingyun were both shocked. In the end, when they saw that the ball was still normal, they quickly restrained their expressions and asked in unison, "Is there any change?" "No, it's the same when we went out. It's the same when we came back." Yunuashing shook her head and pointed at the ground. "By the way, you said that there are a lot of origin relics. Throw them down first. Put the important ones in front and the unimportant ones behind. This is difficult for us." Jingyun looked troubled. She smiled bitterly as she took the things out of her pocket. "More than half of these things are in a sealed state. We can't judge whether these things are important or not." When Yunuashing heard this, he frowned and said, "Then let's throw them all down first." This sentence was like the words when the floodgates were opened. It was obviously not imposing, but the whole observer space instantly echoed with a crashing sound. Yunuashing widened her eyes as she watched Hui and Jingyun pour out the things desperately. They piled up a small mountain on the ground and even hung a few stars in the sky. "Here, it's all here." Hui pointed at the small mountain in front of him and nodded. "Just kill me." "Oh no, you're the most precious person in our world of order. How can you die just like that?" Hui quickly waved his hand with a flattering smile on his face. His smile was as funny as it could be. His words obviously had a hint of schadenfreude. Yunuashing looked at him as if she was looking at a maggot and gave him the middle finger. "What's that?" Jingyun looked at the chaotic ball and noticed the thing in the little brother's hand. It was left behind by the venerable god that day. She deliberately kept them in suspense and only said that the little brother could recognize it. A key left behind by the origin heavenly god. Yunuashing fiddled with the triangular prism crystal in her hand and suddenly smiled faintly. "A great fortune." Huey's breath rushed to his dantian, and he jumped up in excitement. "Yuanshire realm?" "Yes, but it's useless to me." Yunuashing sighed. Hui, who had just gotten excited, suddenly became listless like a frosted eggplant. "No. How did you know? You've already tried?" This was left behind by the origin heavenly god himself that day. "Maybe there's still some hope? Don't give up so quickly. There's no need to try this thing." Yunuashing shook her head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She reached out and pointed at her head. "They told me when they were nagging. It's useless even if I try." "Nagging? Are you talking about the origin heavenly god and the others?" "Yes, the group of ghosts that won't go away. They pop out from time to time and scare me. I'm already used to it." Yunuashing smiled bitterly. Jingyun couldn't help but smile bitterly when she heard that. Then there was nothing she could do. "Little brother, if you can't use it, are you preparing it for someone else? Of course, why not have another Yuanshire heavenly god? Moreover, her power is more or less compatible with the origin heavenly god's power." Then, "Oh, she's here." The four of them turned their heads together and saw a light blue figure slowly walking out of the space in front of them. As soon as she appeared, she saw the four of them looking at her in unison. She was stunned for a moment and quickly walked up to Yunuashing and Hui. "Lord Feng, Lord Hui." Yunuashing fiddled with the crystal in his hand one last time. He waved his hand and gently tossed it to Jing Yuanji. After the latter caught it in a fluster, he said, "From today onwards, you can go into seclusion in the Origin God Palace." Jing Yuanji had just caught the energy crystal and was stunned when she heard this. "But the front line? Don't worry, there won't be any problems for a while. Moreover, we're here, so you can go in peace." Yunuashing smiled and reached out to stroke Jing Yuanji's long hair. "The next time you come out, you'll be the third Yuanshire to be born in this era. Are you excited?" At first, she didn't understand why Lord Feng wanted her to go into seclusion. Only now did she realize that her pretty face was stiff and looked a little dazed. "I'm a little nervous." She looked at the thing in her hand and seemed to understand why Lord Feng said this. "Is it because of this? What is this?" The creation crystal left by the god of origin contains rules and order that can only be felt from them. It is a rule and order that transcends the influence of the void. It can allow you to take that step by force. Yin Nuoxing explained softly, ignoring the girl's stunned expression. Fuse it with your divinity carrier. The origin energy and rules contained in it must be dealt with carefully. Don't be impatient. At least we still have a lot of time now. All right, go quickly. I Ching will take care of the front line for now. We'll also be here watching. Don't worry, you just have to focus on breaking through. After watching Jing Yuanji leave the observer dimension in a daze, Yin Nuoxing turned to look at the chaos ball. Next, there's another equally important thing. Hui and Jing Yuanji couldn't help but cover their faces and tilt their heads. This was something they couldn't avoid. They had been here for 10 billion years without any results. They thought that they could find new clues when they went to the world of science, the name they just thought of. A new clue? Jing Yuanji slapped herself. The loud slap stunned Yin Nuoxing and the others. They turned to see him plunging into the pile of origin relics. He rummaged around and pulled out a colorful ball with a diameter of 1 foot. With a shake of his hand, he threw it to Yin Nuoxing. Brother, hurry and see if you can use this. It's the last fragment we're looking for. Then he pulled out the crystal wall fragment from his crotch. And that doorknob. This guy was determined to use the doorknob as the core. He felt that no matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem right. Maple, on the other hand, had a pensive expression on his face. He looked at the chaotic black sphere that was 300 meters wide, then at the door handle that was thousands of meters long and looked like a small mountain range. He then stared at the multicolored sphere that was constantly carving divine runes in the air. He suddenly sat down cross-legged on the ground and crossed his arms. Jing Yuanji saw this, and the smile on her face took up half of her face. She blinked hard at Hui, sending him a message that said, "How was it? I told you that brother would have an idea. You didn't believe me." Hui smiled bitterly and held his head with both hands. "Anyway, I don't have a brain. I can't do these things. Sorry to disturb you. Goodbye." The three of them looked at Yin Nuoxing staring at the 3 parts in a daze. After watching for a while, they couldn't stay idle anymore. They volunteered to place the relics in the observer's space one by one. As for mobilizing the energy of this space to assist in the analysis, this was not urgent. It was better to wait until he finished the most important step in his hands. At this moment, he should be mobilizing a huge amount of rules and energy to try to deduce and analyze what to do next. A core that could bear the weight of the void, a rule creation that could suppress the energy of chaos, and an aggregate of imprints left in the void of order by the tide of chaos. If the 3 were put together, if all went well, they should be able to create a rule creation that could suppress the energy of chaos and remove the remaining imprints of chaos in the void. It was the cornerstone for them to deal with the biggest crisis of this era and the beginning of all their future actions and plans. Although these 3 things had origin energy, order energy, and chaos energy, they were not particularly worried. It just so happened that Yun Nuo planet had dual orders of its own. Perhaps he would need to use the initial light to deal with it. Theoretically, it's possible. After about an hour, Yin Nuoxing slowly stood up and reached out to pat the 3 big guys in front of him as he responded to Hui and the others. That's a slightly hidden statement. Looks like it's a little troublesome. Hui saw the slight emotion on his old friend's face and knew what he was thinking. Without another word, he rolled up his sleeves. "Tell me, what do you want to do? If there's still a fragment missing, I'll throw it over. It's not a problem of lacking fragments." Yin Nuoxing shook his head. "It's just that I may not be able to leave this place before things are done. And this thing, from the moment the rules are distorted and mixed, their rules and order will be in an uncontrollable state of mixing. Those energies will cause a lot of..." Hui waved his hand vigorously and said with a straight face, "Speak human language. Say some words and be concise." Yin Nuoxing. To put it simply, from the moment I began to create these things, they would begin to release that unique mixture of energy, rules, and order. At first, this movement could still be covered by the observer dimension, but the further it goes, the closer it gets to the end, the greater its influence on the void, even giving birth to countless anomalies. Furthermore, the void's nausea would not be small. At that time, there would be no way to cover up its movement, and I would even have to actively open up the observer dimension to prevent it from connecting with the void, and this movement might attract the attention of the abyssal death mist spawn, I understand. Jingyan suddenly raised his hand, his gaze sharp. Simply put, this thing can only be opened and not closed during the creation stage, and the further it goes, the greater the movement. Who knows, the abyssal death mist spawn with a layer of barrier might launch an attack on City Zero, right? Simply put, that's it. But after it's done, it can be controlled as it pleases. It's just that in the early stages, it may be a little. Yin Nuashing scratched his head. TCH, it's just a fight. What's there to be afraid of? Hui waved his hand fearlessly. We've been fighting in the void frontline for so many years. Every single time, every single moment, we've been facing the abyssal death mist spawn's charge. Do you think we're afraid that they'll charge even harder? You just have to do it. We'll guard the void frontline. That's right. There's no need to worry about the situation ahead. Jingyan nodded and then frowned. But why can't you leave? Haven't you always used the observer dimension to stand guard here in place of yourself? Yin Nuashing scratched his head. Because I have to use myself as the core. The trio was stunned and dumbfounded. That doorknob is at most a subcore. I still have to control everything myself. Only after everything is done can the doorknob replace my position to maintain stability. Hui stroked his chin. Simply put, you have to hang in the void and shine upon the world. Yin Nuashing rolled his eyes. That's the gist of it. Chapter 1737. The blazing flames in the void were like sparks that bloomed to the extreme in an instant and then extinguished. It was so magnificent and passionate. The mighty impact of energy, the sound of order collapsing, and the destruction of rules were like music that was playing in their ears to announce the end. Hui Jun, don't say so much to lessen the pressure on this little brother. Don't wait for this little brother to rush out and beat you up. Jing Yun, who could not bear to continue listening, quickly knocked Hui Jun's back with her fist, interrupting a certain someone's recitation. She grimaced, "Everyone in the void knows about your blessed mouth. Why do you have to say such a suicidal line in front of great battle?" I was just trying to ease the atmosphere. Hui Jun scratched his head and laughed dryly. He quickly turned his gaze to the front. In the boundless void, countless energy explosions and anomalies occurred frequently in his line of sight. There would never be a moment when it would stop, and there would never be a moment when the energy would dissipate. The void frontline, the realm of order, the war zone. They were now on standby at the front line of the realm of order. Behind them was a large group of people who belonged to other battle echelons who were supposed to be on standby at the rear of the realm of order. They were all gathered here, full of energy, rubbing their palms together, and their fighting spirit surged into the void. There was also a group of people who were supposed to be carrying out missions to search for various things in the void of order all year round. They were also urgently summoned back, ready to fight to the end. When the warriors of order in the formation saw this group of people being summoned back, they also felt a little strange. They were a little nervous. According to past experience, something was going to happen again. Not only here, but at this moment, all the nodes in the void front line were preparing their forces. Almost all the available forces in the void front line were gathered together. Even the place in charge of logistics was filled with people. In addition, the Temple of Origin was slowly adjusting from the rear to the front line. Such a rhythm clearly told everyone that something big was about to happen. Therefore, the soul transmission at this time was also a little noisy. A lot of guesses were passed back and forth. Communication was the main business, and passing on information was just along the way. Node 333 reports that the order domain inside and outside the void ceiling circle has been closed. There are no problems here. Node 1001 reports to 0. We've confirmed everything in this area. The internal and external blockades are ready. We've also prepared countermeasures just in case. From now on, The void frontline has entered a two-way concealment state. The world barrier of the frontline world has also been sealed. Everything is normal. The logistics department has moved all the available weapons and is ready to fight at any time. The logistics department has also replenished a lot of manpower. Don't worry about the battle. There won't be a situation where the energy towers are not enough. The sealing of the portal has been completed. It has been confirmed that the void frontline has entered the highest alert state of isolation. From now on, no one is allowed to enter or leave the void frontline. If the force is left behind, see, anyone trying to force their way in, the Origin Energy Tower will issue a warning. The Energy Tower, specially designed to counter the power of chaos, has been prepared. By the way, the Energy Tower designed to counter the power of order has also been prepared. Hopefully, this part will not be used. Huh, was this really that serious? The people from the world of order have come to Zero City to cause trouble? It's true. His Excellency I Ching and Lord Hui went to receive the guest that day. I heard that the primeval heavenly god stood behind those arrogant fellows, which was why they were especially arrogant. They immediately said that they would take over the void frontline and be under their control. They even said that they would lead us against the underworld. Hee, that's impressive. Lunatics, aside from the stench of the abyssal death shroud, this damned place is filled with the nausea of the clash between order and chaos. It's not conducive to development, and there's no profit to be had. So why would such lunatics want to come here? I wouldn't believe it, even if you beat me to death. What? Is it soothing or hypnotic to listen to the warnings of the void frontline? Take over the void frontline? Come on, we have the primeval heavenly god too, and there will be more in the future. Furthermore, I admit that the words primeval heavenly god does sound quite oppressive, but no matter how useful a novice primeval heavenly god is, could it be more useful than that lord? What if he's a high tier? Fisk, if he's a high tier, what's the point of saying so much? He could have just brought people over. Why would he just send people over? Shoo, this matter is only being spread among the higher-ups. Don't spread it. It'll be terrible if it gets too ridiculous. But aren't we just the higher-ups? The higher-ups are just discussing the situation. It's fine. Oh, that's... all right. I was already the deputy commander of a node 20 billion years ago. Oh, I forgot about that. Everyone, is this kid even reliable? All right, let's talk about this in private. Remember, do not casually spread this information through soul communication. If Lord Feng hears it, there's going to be big trouble. Lord Feng is back. Lord Feng woke up a few days ago and went to the Void of Order to settle some matters. Didn't you hear what Lord Hui said? No, not at all. That's great. Lord Feng can push me into the void to take a bath again. Everyone, there's something wrong with this kid's head. This operation is to guard the front line of the void. I heard that Lord Feng is going to create something that can suppress the power of chaos. The whole process might cause a big commotion and affect the other side. If the commotion is even bigger, it might affect the underworld and they might send some ridiculous people over. Understood. We just have to hold on until Lord Feng is done. We'll bet our lives and glory for the world of order. Overall, the morale was very high, especially after hearing that Lord Feng had returned to the front line of the void. It was so high that they wanted to turn this guarding mission into charging and breaking through enemy lines. This was something to look forward to. If the other side suddenly increased their forces and Lord Feng completed his creation of laws, they might be able to charge and make the extra forces they sent unable to return. Killing 100 million more would be profitable, and killing 1 billion more would be profitable. If they could kill some low-tier yuan-shur from the underworld, that would be quite good too. Let's wait for a while. The rumbling sound was low and slow. A huge object carrying something heavy was slowly moving in the void. That huge size and that heavy weight made the void tremble slightly. We felt that the light behind him was blocked by something and could not help but turn around. The Origin Sanctum slowly came to the core of the realm of order. Its huge size blocked the light of laws from Node 0, and its shadow fell on the group. The origin sanctum is in place. From now on, the density of the origin energy flowing in the realm of order will be increased by 20%. Everyone, please adjust yourselves. If you don't recover and die suddenly, go lie down in the spiritual sanctum. The node is ready. Everyone, get ready to make a big fuss. We could not help but scratch his head when he heard those voices. He whispered to Jing Yun, "Seems like we need to get them to help adjust the adaptability of the order beings to the origin energy." Of course, but not now. Sui Feng and the others said that they need to make adjustments according to the laws and order of this era that have already changed. Only then can the origin energy and the laws of origin come into contact with the order beings more gently. Jing Yun stretched his hands. They have already worked very hard. In the past, it was the origin heavenly God and the others who did these things. Now that they have left, it is naturally the inheritors' turn. They do not have enough experience. Be patient. They have inherited the will of the origin heavenly God. They will not let us down. We squinted his eyes and stared at him. He could not help but tease. "You're putting a lot of pressure on them, too." "I'm not you. My mouth is not blessed," Jing Yun replied bluntly. We did not know whether to laugh or cry. Ding! A crisp sound resonated from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone could not help but turn their heads to look at the same place, the Zero City behind them, and it seemed that only they could feel it. So far, they had not heard any strange sounds from other nodes. Hui and Jingyun looked at each other. Both of them turned their heads to look at the city behind them. We cannot help but take a breath. It has begun. Vaguely, in the direction of the observer space, a very transparent light could be seen. It looked like the first light, but it was different from what they knew. It seemed to be mixed with something else. The light was also gradually becoming clearer at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, it would take some time for it to fully materialize and be projected there. Then, according to the plan from the beginning, we took 2 steps forward and waved his hand. The divine energy on his body began to surge. Just as he was about to speak, Jing Yun suddenly stopped him. "Hey, wait a minute. I thought a problem." "A what?" Jing Yun looked at the battle in the distance, her eyes trembling slightly. "It's best that we maintain this situation and continue to fight. They can't see our situation in the realm of order, so they don't know what we're doing here. If we suddenly change our attack style, whether it's attacking or defending, they might be able to guess something. If they adapt to our changes, then it won't be fun. Don't forget, there should be people from the underworld watching over here. Even if it's a small change, we have to be cautious. After all, our little brother is not here right now." We thought about it and agreed. "I'll listen to you." Echelon change. From now on, the first and second echelons will withdraw into the realm of order. The third and fourth echelons will replace the first and second echelons to suppress the manifestations. The others are not in a hurry to come out. Just fight the enemies in the realm of order. Now, all energy towers will enter their normal energy output mode. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. The sound of violent energy vibrations suddenly burst into the void. Everyone was stunned. The realm of order, the battlefield, and even the army of manifestations were stunned by this mighty sound. Thousands of gazes crossed the void and fixed on one spot. Node 0. A golden beam of light accompanied by a dark energy current shot into the sky. It pointed to an unknown place far away in the void. Then it suddenly exploded into a huge energy ring that spread across the entire void. The original light that had changed its form seemed to have come into contact with something in the void. The energy that had gathered at the apex began to pour out uncontrollably in all directions. Countless indescribable energies poured out. Rings of energy rings and energy ripples that would not weaken began to spread in all directions in the void. Then, with the power of the node, the spreading area was magnified several times. It almost covered half of the front line of the void. "It's over." We said the last word in a daze. He was so stunned that his tongue almost fell out. His chin kept trembling. This is not much from what we thought at the start. It's not quite the same. It's starting right from the start. Luckily, we've already made preparations. We wave his hand. At this moment, The void seal and the realm of order could no longer suppress the spread of this energy. But it was fine. They were only standing here because they were prepared. The first and second echelons retreat immediately. Everyone, remove all restraints on the energy towers and enter the charging state. Don't rush to fight. Wait for the other side to make a move. The third and fourth echelons. Follow me and charge. Report. Detecting a large-scale energy explosion in the abyssal death fog. An abnormally thick crack is opening. This is more than one. More than one. The number of cracks is still increasing. The retreating abyssal death fog is approaching bit by bit. Countless manifestations are. This. Detecting the appearance of the primeval heavenly god of the underworld. Beginner. Jing Yun said, continue to keep the energy towers charging. Press the energy on their faces when all of them have appeared. Waves of vast energy exploded in the realm of order. Just the unceremonious charging state of tens of thousands of energy towers had already set off a monstrous storm in the realm of order. Everyone's gaze turned from the initial light to the front, the abyssal death fog. The abyssal death fog that had retreated to the rear once again surged violently. The abyssal death fog that covered the entire realm of order stirred violently like a storm once again. They had not seen such a scene for hundreds of billions of years. The commotion on the other side was also very intense. The vast abyssal death fog churned violently. The army of manifestations roared from afar like a vast ocean. It was just like the white line from the distant sea, except that it was not seawater. Every drop of seawater was a manifestation with an average size of tens of thousands of feet. Rift. Jing Yun's gaze pierced through the turbulent battlefield and looked towards the abyssal death fog. Near the abyssal death fog, there were chaotic energy waves coming from several places. The surging energy within seemed to have suddenly exploded, violently tearing dozens of rifts in the void. Under the effect of the chaotic energy, the rifts rapidly widened and then stabilized. Each rift was tens of millions of miles long and tens of thousands of miles wide. And the first thing to emerge from the rifts was a large number of chaos constructs, tainted with the thick abyssal death fog. Then, in a void leap, they suddenly appeared at the front of the entire army. Ugh, these chaos constructs are so disgusting no matter how many times I see them. Huey's voice rang in the soul transmission. Jing Yun's face twitched. The army was still marching, and they were approaching the void blockade at an extremely fast speed with the help of the void power, and they looked a little abnormal. Although each of the manifestations was the type that had lost their rationality, this time he truly felt that the abnormality of these things had broken through the limits of the void. Their scarlet eyes were almost turning black, and all of them were blessed with a fanatical blessing, charging towards them with a rage that broke through the normal state of madness. The first light, brother, the attraction of the first light seems to have been magnified by tens of thousands of times. Jing Yun gritted his teeth. Originally, whenever the first light appeared here, the manifestations of this void region would not stay still, and this time it was even more outrageous. Multipurpose energy towers overload the energy output and focus fire on those chaos constructs. As Jing Yun shouted, the tens of thousands of energy towers that had been charged to the point where they could not hold back let out a rumble that shook the void. Streaks of energy halo appeared from the bottom of the towers and spiraled towards the top. After a few seconds of delay, a circle of ripples abruptly spread from the top of the energy towers, and a vast torrent of endless order and origin energy poured forward like a galaxy, covering an area of at least 100 million miles and directly crashing into the chaos constructs that were rushing to reincarnate. Under the impact of the all-encompassing order power, one could only feel the violent expansion and decline of energy time and time again. They had definitely hit, but there was no way to observe the result of the attack. It did not matter, for they did not need the result. After all, there would still be countless manifestations or constructs behind the attack, and they only had one thing to do, recharged the energy towers, and continued to attack while the vast energy from the previous attack was still wreaking havoc in the void. A gigantic shadow, accompanied by gray and scarlet radiance, made its appearance amidst the blinding radiance. The first to charge out of the range of the Order energy seal was a sphere that had already been destroyed by the explosion of 2/3 of its body. Only its solid interior was left, and even its largest diameter did not exist. However, there were still countless spawns within that gigantic remaining volume. Perhaps because the construct had lost its original function, and there was no longer much of an effect, even if it continued to stick together. Those spawns that were huddled together quickly broke away from the group, and like a swarm of bees, they continued to charge towards the seal. Hui let out a soft cry, and the guardian barrier expanded in the void, connecting with the Order domain. The great sword in his hand pointed forward, and a divine impact that was tens of thousands of miles wide erupted. As he waved his sword, he shouted, "Fire! Continue to fire!" The moment the saturated energy bombardment that covered the entire area ended, a large number of densely packed chaos constructs and manifestations looked like a rich star system that was dragging its entire family over. What entered the eyes were dozens of chaos constructs that were the size of stars and planets, and countless manifestations that were piled up into asteroid belts and star rings. They should belong to the second echelon. After the first round of bombardment, they were almost unscathed. As for the first echelon, only a sphere that had 1/3 of its body left was left, and it was now disintegrating by itself. Less than 15 seconds after the first round of bombardment, the second vast energy explosion from the Order domain shook the void once again, with a force that was even more destructive than the first attack sweeping across the entire battlefield. When the light and shadow had completely dissipated, not even the shadow of that vast star system could be seen. However, the dozens of large rifts behind it were still pouring out endless tides, and more manifestations and chaos constructs were rushing into the battlefield. However, under the current bombardment of Order power, it was still very difficult for them to pile up and charge into the defensive area of the Order domain. This berserk state is even more ridiculous than I thought. Hui stood with his sword in the void, standing at the forefront of the entire domain. Beside him were 3 or 4 echelons of Order warriors who had cleaned up the surrounding spawns. After a round of explosive attacks to get rid of the remaining spawns, or those who had managed to break through the encirclement, they unhurriedly took out a new batch of energy towers and pressed them into the void, carving energy runes, charms, and divine patterns. After that, they put them into automatic attack mode. After that, they took out weapons one after another, prepared to engage in close combat at any time. Where are those guys in the backup echelon who were carrying large amounts of energy? We looked at the approaching chaos constructs and suddenly remembered such a team. He could not help but turn around. One of the Order warriors who was close to him scratched his head. "Master Hui, that team seems to have used up too many things every time they appear, and the rewards they get are far less than normal battles. After being beaten up by the logistics team, they stopped doing that." Hui smiled bitterly. "I think that's quite useful, especially for a situation like this. Look, when the enemy comes charging over, let them make a grand entrance, and with a bang, it's worth it." When the Order warrior heard that, he became excited. "I really hope that the logistics team can hear you." "Master Hui, I'm from that team. I still have some spare parts in my pocket, you see," Hui said. "Go." Asterisk boom. Asterisk about half a minute later, on the path where the chaos constructs and a large number of manifestations were charging over, there was suddenly an extremely dazzling flash that lit up the entire void. It was so dazzling that it blinded the eyes. Coupled with a round of bombardment from the energy towers, nothing could be seen. There was really nothing within the range of one's eyesight, other than that continuous explosion of energy that seemed to split the world apart. There was nothing else. The energy of the abyssal death mist has decreased. Effective kill. I can't remember clearly. Anyway, the first 2 batches should have been wiped out. Brothers of Node 0, good news. The manifestations and a large number of chaos constructs nearby have brought thousands of troops to play with you. We will try our best to help you kill and block them on the way. Please get ready as soon as possible. If you need support, just give us a shout. Same old rules. If you can stop them, stop them. If you can't, just let them come. Don't drag the battle out too long. Huey's eyes were still locked on the depths. Suddenly he laughed. The primeval. It seems that they are serious now, but their reaction is really fast. The light burst out for less than a minute, and they have already responded by directly attacking with their entire army. Jingyun was preparing to hunt at the rear. Hearing that, she shrugged. Perhaps they have been wary of our movements from the beginning. Can you handle it? If it's really just a beginner, it's definitely not a problem. Hui heard that and nodded. Then, I wish you all the best. Jingyun smiled and exchanged glances with the people beside her. Then, the few of them disappeared into the realm of order like smoke. They silently walked towards the battlefield in front of them. Come and play. It's not easy to get a proper beginner primeval. Don't run. Chapter 1738. In the dark space, the galaxy that was reflected in this place had fallen into a frenzied whirlpool. Dozens of soul presences were rising and falling in this place, releasing countless information, causing the frenzied rhythm of the galaxy to become even more frenzied, until a presence that was powerful enough to shake the entire starry sky suddenly descended. The entire starry sky became quiet. Retreat. This matter will be dealt with according to the previous arrangements. The urgent matter is still the matter of that side. The dozens of soul presences wriggled for a moment before quietly leaving this part of the starry sky. The presence that descended just now stared at this part of the starry sky and waited for quite a while. It only turned its attention when it sensed another presence approaching. It seems that you have encountered a big problem. An empty and indifferent voice suddenly sounded, causing the starry sky to tremble slightly. The power that our old friends left behind is a creation that can indiscriminately suppress the power of chaos. If you still intend to rely on those inferior defective products. It's fine. I have already anticipated this. I have a plan to deal with it. Another soul calmly replied. The starry sky suddenly trembled slightly, as if something was quietly changing in the dark. The empty and indifferent voice suddenly became a little interested. Oh, they're finally willing to use their own precious power. Although the idea is good, you must be careful not to fall into it. After all, that is the world of order that they have painstakingly preserved. I have to go back. Oh, right? I have to remind you. The power that they left behind, the direct power that belongs to them, has reunited with the world of order. However, it's hard to say whether they will encounter it or not. Anyway, it has already appeared. You know what I'm talking about. Well then, good luck. The darkness and coldness in the starry sky quietly faded away. Another soul power stirred in the starry sky for a while, leaving behind a long sigh before quietly dissipating. Inheritors, huh? How troublesome. While the Void Frontline and the Observer Space were engaged in a frenzied battle, the Observer Space was also in a unique confrontation. It was also a collision of energy, but it was much more dazzling and intense here. If one was not careful, the entire space and the vaguely connected outer world would be sent flying into the void, and at the same time, the morale of one's own people would be damaged to an unknown degree. In the pillar of light formed by the initial light that shook the void, Yun Nuoxing's figure floated in the light that reached the sky. Surrounding him were 3 stars that were releasing energy without restraint. However, they were only tens of thousands of feet in size. Being watched by the 3 balls at such a close distance, it looked as if he would fall into the hell of light and fire at any time. It was really an excitement that ordinary people could not enjoy. The rampaging energy was not channeled or controlled, and was simply released unconsciously into the void. Yin Nuoxing looked up at the majestic energy guided by the first light, and could not help muttering. As expected, it still feels a little wasteful. So many things could be done with such a large amount of energy. The little angel sensed the change in his mind and was stunned for a moment. Wait, what are you going to do? Don't you think it's best if you don't distract yourself in this situation? It's fine. I'm just using the energy that's been dispersed. It's a waste to leave it there and not use it. Yin Nuashing let out a low laugh as his body shone with multicolored radiance. His soul instantly burst out from the space that was almost fused with the outside world and rushed towards the Shrine of Origins that was acting as a node on the front line. Using the power of the soul as a bridge to connect him to the Shrine of Origins, a tremendous will abruptly spread across the entire front line of the void. Everyone, fight without restraint. Don't worry about the lack of energy. A powerful will accompanied by a vast and almost endless energy descended upon the front line of the void. An extremely oppressive energy of order was suddenly exposed from the node without warning, instantly drowning the domain of order. The energy that carried the faint energy of origin and the initial light that flooded the domain of order made everyone feel as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Even the energy towers were affected by the energy and became irritable. Lord Foam. It's Lord Foam. Lord Foam is back. Everyone immediately understood where the energy came from. Each of them let out a hurried and high-spirited roar as they poured more energy into the battlefield. There was no telling if they were agitated because they were suddenly strengthened or because they knew that Foam was back. That bastard is still restless at the back. Hui casually pressed a chaos construct into the void and turned back to look at the place where the initial light burst out. He could not help but smile bitterly. Borrowing the initial light and those three things. I never thought that it could increase the power of order on such a large scale. In just a few dozen minutes of battle, the chaos constructs and the army of abyssal death mist spawns had yet to get close to the domain of order. They had not even rushed into their attack range. Relying on the ultra-long-range chaos blasts would not be able to defeat the energy towers. However, there were enough of them. They had already wiped out 20 to 30 batches of chaos constructs. Now, they had gone through dozens of void jumps and were very close to their attack range. Currently, those at the front had been detonated by the surging torrent of order, turning into fireworks in the void. In less than 2 minutes, those at the front would also be wiped out. However, there were just meat shields now, only to escort the army at the back as they continued to advance. While Feng's buff is at its maximum, blast them back. Hui shouted at everyone in the domain of order. After that, he punched the Guardian's shield and broke it into 18 pieces with a single punch. The pieces then rushed into the area covered by the torrent of energy. Attack with all your might. The energy towers that were responsible for gathering the energy for a powerful attack were delayed for about 10 seconds. Together, they unleashed a powerful energy blast that was enough to collapse the void. In an instant, they crossed the void between the two sides and drowned the army of chaos constructs and spawns at the front. Then, they crashed into Huey's Guardian shield and turned into billions of scattered energy beams, sweeping across the entire void like energy swords. Just the light alone had cut an entire chaos construct in half, and the remaining energy had almost completely devoured half of it. In the abyssal death mist, a group of fledglings and the underworld people who were guarding the rift frowned when they saw the scene. How did the power of order increase again? In this broken era, they still have the ability to unconditionally increase the power of order? Probably it's because of that light. TSK. Tricky thing. Before the reinforcements arrive, I don't know if these stimulated defective products can push the battle line forward smoothly. Damn it. If we let them continue to show off their power in the void, our losses will be too great. You, and all of you, take the power of chaos and go around them. Tear a hole in the defensive line of order. More than a dozen figures wrapped in dark energy nodded and waved their hands to close the rift. Just as they left the group and took a few steps forward, they suddenly froze. The void around them suddenly shattered into pieces and collapsed. More than a dozen figures did not even have time to react before they turned into a vast rain of light and disappeared. Where do you want to play, rats? The moment the group of underworld people was destroyed, their eyes widened and they were ready for battle. Then, more than a dozen figures suddenly appeared in the shattered void and slowly took shape. They smiled at the underworld people with a slightly sinister smile. The surging aura of their bodies was so strong that it made the group of low-level primeval sweat profusely. Coming in alone, you're asking for death. A gloomy and angry roar broke the frozen silence. A figure suddenly rushed out of the rift in the abyssal death mist and turned into a shadow that rushed toward Jing Yun without any warning. Now that we have the support of the little brother's power, you didn't bring out two mid-level primeval. What do you mean? Jing Yun smiled faintly. With a casual wave of his hand, divine runes and runes that blotted out the sky greeted the figure that was charging toward them. In less than a second, it was enveloped within, under the suppression of a strange force. It was instantly compressed into a rune energy ball that was only the size of a thumb. He looked at the energy ball carefully, then aimed it at the people guarding the crack not far away and flicked his finger. Boom! It was as if a beginner-level Yuansher had suddenly unleashed all his energy in front of him. The energy storm instantly engulfed the 3 or 4 cracks in front of him. The fledglings and the underworld people's hasty attacks and defenses were drowned in an instant. Even their bodies became part of the sea of light and were completely disintegrated. The mighty destructive storm was also mixed with an extremely rich source of energy. It was not the power that he had released, but the aura that the young man had added to them. Several figures suddenly landed beside Jing Yun and nodded to him. The seal is complete. You can start now. I've been fighting for a while. Then use all your strength to smash it. Smash as many as you can. Tear down everything here. In the instant that everyone spread out, a mighty aura burst out from the abyssal death mist rift. That overpowering aura stunned Jing Yun and the others. He could not help but smile bitterly. Good heavens. I just said mid-level primeval, and a mid-level primeval really came. You guys don't have any morals. Before they come out of the rift, bury them in the teleportation void storm. The advantage that came from the realm of Order's advanced preparation and the further increase in power was suddenly suppressed. To be specific, it was the advantage at Node 0 that was suppressed. Other than that, they still had the advantage at other places. The battle had not reached a one-sided state, but the army of manifestations could not get close to the realm of Order in a short time. Meanwhile, at Node 0, the army of manifestations and construct from the other nodes had finally arrived at the vicinity of Node 0 after tens of minutes of long journey. The army of billions of soldiers gathered at that place, and after trying their best to cross the range of Order energy bombardment, they bared their 2 ferocious front teeth at them. Pay attention to defense. The chaotic impact of the constructs is coming. Hui shouted at the top of his lungs. He turned around and disappeared from the place of attack into the realm of Order. The great shield and sacred sword in his hand slammed into the void, holding up the most powerful defensive barrier in the realm of Order. Then, the core of those distorted behemoths burst out with a gray light that was enough to make the void lose its color. Streaks of energy accompanied by dense chaotic aura attacked from all directions, crossing the void in an instant and hitting heavily on the realm of Order. The 2-layered realm, along with the sacred barrier, trembled as a result, tottering on the verge of collapse. While they're attacking, attack them one by one according to the arranged echelon. Shoot them down. We pulled out the sacred greatsword with both hands and used force to stimulate the void. The sacred energy swept across the entire realm of Order like a storm. Attack! Groups of energy towers appeared in the surrounding void without any warning. Moreover, all of them were in a state of overcharging. Hundreds of thousands of energy towers shone at the same time, causing the fledglings mixed in with the army of manifestations to be shocked. At this time, it was obviously too late for them to withdraw their attacks. They could only hurriedly defend themselves. Streaks of Order energy streaked across the void and burst out from the side of the army of constructs, stringing the groups of star-sized constructs together from front to back. Violent destructive energy was released. The power of Order seized the opportunity when the power of chaos was not paying attention and slapped it into the void to explode. Therefore, the dazzling energy explosion was led by the power of order. A series of dazzling energy fireworks filled the void. Boundless balls of light bloomed like the sun. However, when all the energy streaks swept across all directions and finally gathered together, the tens of thousands of energy streaks suddenly froze, stopping at one target. No matter how much the order impact landed on it, it did not move at all, causing everyone in the realm of order to turn their gazes towards it. Lord Hui, there's an abnormal target that cannot be destroyed. There's suspected to be the aura of the primeval realm mixed in it. I see it. All of you, put away the energy towers first and attack those who are alone. Hui turned his head and fixed his gaze on the empty spot where the dazzling fireworks were. His gaze locked on for a moment, then he was stunned. It was a ball surrounded by 30 magic circles. The diameter of the magic circles was about 10,000 miles, but the core of the ball of light only had a diameter of 3 to 4,000 miles. The aura in the ball of light. The aura of order? That magic circle, that's... Huey's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Then he screamed in his soul transmission. Phone! Something big has happened to Phone. This bunch of lunatics have used the power of the primeval god. Just as he finished screaming, the ball slowly released its own energy aura. A golden energy mixed with a dark air current was slowly released. When it came into contact with the magic circle, it suddenly exploded. The energy aura that swept through the realm of order was accompanied by an extremely rich primeval energy. Everyone was shocked. The primeval energy suddenly suppressed the output power of their realm of order. Even the warriors of order who were charging at the front suddenly froze. At the same time, the magic circle with the ball suddenly spiraled and turned. A mighty primeval energy madly condensed and aimed at the realm of order. Everyone retreat. Full defense. The mighty primeval energy turned into a dazzling light of extreme power and rushed through the void in an instant and landed on the dozens of barriers of the realm of order. More than 10 of the strongest energy barriers collapsed in an instant. The huge impact and the destructive power of the rules of order were only disintegrated by 2/3 of the energy barriers. The remaining power was unreservedly released into the realm of order, knocking everyone out with their energy towers. Energy accompanied by golden lightning swept out from Huey's body and supported the people and energy towers that were sent flying out. He placed them safely in the realm of order. Then he raised his hand and threw out 2 guardian shields that were like city gates at the front, dispersing a lot of the shockwaves that seeped in. With a distressed look, he said, "Why do we keep getting beaten up by the primeval energy recently?" It was the primeval energy. The damage caused by that power was not something that could be completely neutralized by a mere barrier. Even the annihilation energy could not be completely neutralized. Even though they were separated by a barrier, the primeval energy still needed to give them a slap. Fortunately, they were able to defend themselves quickly. Otherwise, it would not be as simple as a slap. It was also fortunate that he had the Temple of Origin. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the direct impact of the primeval energy. Unless he was allowed to sit on the ground for 1 or 2 hours, that would not be a problem. Then, he would not be afraid of another 100 attacks. The problem was that from the beginning of the battle, he did not think that he would encounter something that required him to defend himself with all his might. Who would have thought that he would be hit in the head all of a sudden? He was able to withstand it, but the 3rd and 4th echelons. In the blink of an eye, half of them were lost. The attack came too quickly, and they were controlled by the primeval energy, so they could not dodge it. It could not be helped. After all, that was the most powerful force in the world of order. If it was placed on Maple, it could cause too much damage to the enemy. Now that it was placed on the enemy and was attacking them, it would naturally cause considerable damage to them. It seemed that the underworld had been cornered by them. They had quietly brought out the primeval energy and even carefully hid it among their army. Were they trying to catch them off guard? Maple, do something. That thing has been beating us up. Hui quickly shouted to the back. At this moment, the army of chaos constructs and manifestations were not nearby. They were probably afraid that they would be caught in the shock waves from the collision between the primeval energy and the realm of order. So, they were all hiding far away. However, if that thing that was encircled by a circle continued to attack the realm of order. Anyway, he felt that the realm of order was already trembling. Yin Nuoxing was silent for a moment before she said, "Would you believe me if I say that I've actually held it down?" "What? Say that again." "That thing has used the power of the primeval god. Although it's quite weak, and the way they use that power is too crude and direct, it's still the power of those undead. You can treat this thing as a powerful, offensive temple of origin. Other than attacking, we seem to have understood something. Could it be that it can also strengthen the power of the manifestations and chaos constructs, mixed with the aura of chaos? Theoretically, it can do that. That's why I've held down its strengthening function. Look at it, and then look at the chaos constructs that have surrounded it." We heard that, and immediately looked up into the distance. That thing that was encircled by a circle of orbs was emitting a brilliant light that spiraled with a dark aura. The pattern of the energy trembling, the way the energy was released, and that aura he was familiar with. It was the appearance of the Temple of Origin's realm of order. As for the army of manifestations that had surrounded it, those big guys were all nestled in the back, maliciously rubbing the chaos energy. At a glance, the 1 to 2,000 chaos constructs were almost fully charged. The reason why they had not attacked yet was probably because they were waiting for the orbs to strengthen their power. Oh, my life is over. Hui smiled bitterly and broke out in cold sweat. At this moment, all the energy and energy towers in the realm of order had been turned into defensive mode. Feng Yuan was at the back, increasing their strength, and holding down the dog's head was already working very hard. But they had a crippled Qiu. Bang! Huff and puff. Fight your mother. Several more energy barriers were declared invalid. Hui immediately felt the pressure on the guardian barrier increase by several times. He was sweating profusely. He hurriedly shouted through the soul transmission, "Help! Is there anyone who has the time to save me?" Yin Nuoxing, that lazy bastard. Just as he was about to help because a certain lazy bastard was not doing anything, he suddenly felt a surge of energy in the realm of order. He thought for a moment and held back the energy that was about to burst out. In the realm of order, a surge of violent energy accompanied by silver-blue lightning that was 10,000 miles wide suddenly appeared. It streaked across the side of the realm of order and charged forward like a raging silver dragon. In an instant, it rubbed against the 30 circles that were stuck together and exploded with a burst of energy that did not lose to the chaos energy tainted creation of origin. The violent energy flame, along with circles of ripples, exploded, blowing the 30 circles into pieces. A figure suddenly appeared in the void. "Oh, cool." We clapped his hands hard. Brother Lei, who was wearing a silver-white tight-fitting robe, appeared in the sky, accompanied by lightning. He looked down at the creation of origin that was just scratched and had not stopped releasing energy. He raised his hand and waved. The figure that gathered hundreds of millions of silver-white lightning fell together with the thunder dragon. He shouted softly and pressed all the energy on the core of the sphere. Silver dragon. An astonishing burst of energy. Probably because they were both origin energy, the two energies collided violently after they came into contact in the core. In a short moment, all the energy in the entire core was ignited. A burst of energy that was dazzling enough to break the void rushed out from the core. The sudden flash of light was as dazzling as the flash of light at the moment of creation. Hui, who was clapping his hands and praising the creation of origin, suddenly froze. That dazzling burst of energy. He seemed to have seen a figure flying out. Maple's voice suddenly rang in his mind. "Hui, hurry up and get him back. The origin energy that is tainted by chaos energy will detonate hundreds of times faster than before. The power is also the same. I've been beaten up before, so I know. That guy might not have paid attention to his defense and flew out. He really flew out. Chapter 1739. When Liao pulled Brother Lei back from the deep void far away from the front line, he was scratching his head and smiling awkwardly. His formal and handsome standard white robe had turned gray, as if he was picked up from a garbage dump. His face was also smeared with dust, as if he had just come back from digging coal. Ahem, I miscalculated. It's my first time fighting an origin creation. I didn't expect it to be so exciting. Brother Lei laughed dryly at Hui. But it won't be a problem next time. Now that I have experience, I'll put on my shield before I charge. Hui heard that and nodded with difficulty. But why are you here all of a sudden? Have you guys moved? That's not true. Didn't you tell us to endure for a while and pay attention to our recovery? We've been waiting at the back. However, you guys have already started fighting at the front line. We can't really not pay attention to it. Moreover, you were shouting so loudly just now. If we don't come and hit you, we'll feel bad. Brother Lei shrugged. Huey's expression changed at the mention of the matter just now. He quickly dragged the others back to the front line. Oh no, I didn't expect them to use the origin power so quickly. We don't have the corresponding countermeasures here. We have to get everyone at the front line to don't worry. Maple's voice echoed in his mind like a curse. As long as those 4 words were heard, he would instantly calm down. The origin power only appeared at Node 0. It seems that they intend to attack this place and interrupt my guidance. If they didn't guess what the original light was guiding something, then they intend to flatten whatever is first. By the way, I think it should be the former. Right now, the battlefield of more than 100 nodes is tilting towards Node 0. The army of spawns and constructs also intend to charge over from various parts of the void and gather in front of Node 0 to charge directly. They even gave up on attacking the other nodes and just charged here. Although the other nodes are doing their best to stop them. If they want to leave, their interception won't be any better. With this kind of reckless fighting style, I don't believe that they don't know that they're just blindly attacking. Hui and Brother Lei couldn't help but look at each other. The former said, after all, it's the remnant clan from the previous era. Maybe there are people inside who know about this. That unconcealable energy, that aura, passed through the void front line and spread to a very distant place. Perhaps it covered the entire middle plane and a small portion of the upper plane's void territory. Since the netherworld had the power of origin, it shouldn't take too much effort to identify this energy. Hui suddenly asked Brother Lei, did the origin heavenly god use anything to suppress the power of primal chaos? Brother Lei nodded. Of course, but it is not as effective as this. Those conventional methods can only suppress less than 10% of the power. But this thing, you have heard from Her Eminence that it can suppress 10 to 20% of the power of chaos. When we were sent away, this thing was still in the planning stage. Oh, that's right. The 2 auras are about the same. It's just that there's a difference in strength. Then it seems that there are people in the netherworld who have seen through what's happening in the void territory. So, they're risking their lives to come and stop us. Yin Nuashing replied softly. We have to strengthen our defensive power. But we seem to have figured out all the strengthening methods that we can use. TSK, I don't know if the other side has sent anything that can kill us. This is going to be very difficult. They had made sufficient preparations before they started, but they didn't leave any so-called trump cards or backup forces. Speaking of which, who would dare to leave a backup plan in this kind of battlefield? That was simply courting death. The other side wouldn't give them any time to prepare. They would come and slap them in the face. The beginning was violent, and the end was fatal. Ah, little brother, I have 2 pieces of news here. Jing Yun's voice suddenly sounded in the soul communication. That tone was more or less desolate and helpless. Hearing it, they were all stunned. Let's talk about the bad news first. The 3 of them said in unison. The netherworld has sent 20 to 30 beginner-level Yuanshi who are close to the peak of beginner level. Then what's the good news? The good news is that I've locked them up here. Along with more than 10 million new manifestations that have appeared. Oh, and 1 to 200 chaotic constructs. Yin Nuashing and the other 2. You've locked them up? You're being surrounded, aren't you? Could the good news be referring to you using your body to block them there? Heh, I didn't think that they would be so violent. This group of people doesn't talk about martial virtues. I just started one round, and they called a bunch of people over. Jingyun smiled bitterly. Huey's face darkened as he muttered, "To hell with martial virtues. Who in the void talks about martial virtues with you? Those who talk about martial virtues with you have already been pressed into the void and beaten into a ball of light by you." Old Brother Lay's gaze crossed the void's front line and the void, locking onto a part of the void that was surrounded by a huge energy barrier. That sealed area didn't receive much attention from the manifestations and constructs, but inside, from the frequency of the barrier's surface flashing, the battle inside should be very lively. I can still endure here for an hour or two and try to kill a bunch of them. Remember to save up a round of order disintegration. When the time comes, come over and help out. Just shoot at me. Jingyun hurriedly threw down this sentence and cut off the spiritual transmission. The battle on the other side should still be very intense. He had only taken the time to send a few words and also throw down a message that could barely be considered a request for help. Speaking of which, the dozen of them could still fight for 2 hours even though they were surrounded. It didn't seem as urgent as they thought. "Lord Hui, I've detected more constructs with origin power on the way. Just like before, they're hiding in the ranks of constructs. Number 20. I Ching's hurried voice gave the 3 of them a headache. Hui rubbed his forehead helplessly. "All right, looks like they're going to use all their strength to break through this place in a short amount of time and interrupt your illuminating the void." The army of manifestations and construct had clearly been stimulated and injected with adrenaline. A bunch of strengthening statuses hung over their bodies. The fact that the first and second batches were crushed to death in the void instead made them even more berserk. They then sneakily took out those chaos constructs that had been treated with origin power. Those things that were already fearless in the first place became even more berserk under the reverse stimulation of origin power. They were now unleashing their own chaos power without restraint, greatly increasing the pressure on the trio. "Maple, those formations of yours. Those formations that can't be moved. Do you have a way to move them to the front lines? There are more than 1 trillion formations left behind at the second defensive line. Even after 100 billion years of battle, that number had jumped a few times. However, 70 to 80% of them were formations that were fixed at the second defensive line and couldn't be moved to act as battle fortresses. Right now, less than 20% of them were actually brought to the front lines. Actually, I didn't think about this problem back then." Yin Nuashing exhaled in distress. "They can be moved before they're activated, but those formations used to fortify the base are hard to move once they've been activated. How about this? I'll adjust the formations from themselves to solidifying the void around them. You can chisel them out along with that piece of void and move them to the front lines." "There's such a thing?" Hui and Old Brother Thunder were speechless. "If I say there is, then there is. Hurry up, I've already dealt with it. Just hold on for one more day, and it'll be done in one day." Hui was also excited when he heard that. He originally thought that it would take a longer time, such as a month or 2, or even a year or 2. He did not expect that it would only take 1 day. Actually, it was not easy to hold on for 1 day when the underworld was charging at them at full force. The void under their feet trembled violently. Hui and Old Brother Thunder looked up at the front lines. That was the impact of that thing with the power of origin. When it hit the realm of order, it affected the movement of this part of the void. That was not the power of 2 kinds of order mixed together. Otherwise, the power would not be so weak. Its body was still a kind of chaos structure, but the material was not a derivative that was piled up. Then there should be a very well-isolated power of origin inside it. The principle was also very simple. Let the 2 kinds of power stimulate each other to explode with more powerful destructive power. For more details, just look at Maple's origin, chaos. The latter was more violent and manic. I'll ask them to come over and help. Without saying a word, Old Brother Thunder spread out the power of his soul. He tilted his head and saw Hui was about to say something. He waved his hand and smiled. Don't worry, we won't expose too much power at once and let the other side see through it. But if we don't do something now, it will be difficult to clean up the situation when the time comes. We smiled bitterly. Then let them go. Let's move Maple's magic array to the front lines. The chaos structure with the power of origin could not keep releasing energy. After the golden light with the dark energy shone on the realm of order for a full minute, the light quietly dissipated. The realm of order also let out a few droning sounds of energy exhaustion. Then the energy tower that had completed the energy output conversion in a short period of time, along with tens of thousands of roars, once again unleashed a torrent of energy that covered the entire void, drowning the chaos structure that was still showing off. As for those bodies with the power of origin, it would not be easy to destroy them in a short period of time. They might need to gather the energy of the entire realm of order to penetrate them in one shot. If they could string them together, it would be better. That would consume a lot of energy, and it was obviously not worth it to kill them all. Focus the firepower of the energy tower on the normal structure and the derivative. Don't bother about those with the power of origin. They can't sink the realm of order. We don't have a way to kill it in a short period of time. Let's wait for Master Hui and the others to come back first. I Ching waved his hand and gave the order. Personal Special Energy Tower. Enter the charging state first. TSK. For now, use it to strengthen the defense of the realm of order. After a few rounds of bombardment, the defense of the realm of order had been reduced by 1/3. Now it looked quite stable. However, with more and more special constructs gradually getting into position, it was hard to say how long this layer of barrier could last. It had been more than an hour since the start of the battle. The Abyssal Death Mist derivative had led the constructs and special constructs to recover from the first and second round of destruction. At this moment, they were lining up in formation within their attack range and launching a counterattack. The derivatives were not afraid of death to begin with. Now, they were pouncing on the realm of order without any hesitation. It was obvious that they were planning to use cannon fodder to attract the enemy's attention. Those chaotic constructs would not stop attacking just because their target was blocking their allies. On the contrary, they seemed to be attacking even harder. These two were still fine. Originally, they would need a long time to cause enough damage to the realm of order, so there was nothing to be afraid of. What gave him a headache were those chaotic constructs with the power of origin that had suddenly appeared. It was common knowledge that once something in the void had the word origin attached to its name, the entire thing would no longer be familiar to anyone. This law seemed to apply to the chaotic constructs at the front as well. These 20 to 30 chaotic constructs that were getting into position one after another carried an astonishing amount of power. They were not pieced together by the derivatives, but were themselves special nomological creations. They could hold on for a long time under the bombardment of order power. In fact, because they were standing at the front, they even shared about 60 to 70% of the attack with the army of derivatives and constructs. These things are simply shameless. I Ching smiled bitterly. At this moment, he had no idea how to deal with those 20 to 30 special chaotic constructs that were gradually increasing. At the beginning of this battle, order had been steadily gaining the upper hand. However, as the battle went on, they suddenly switched to defensive mode. Conservatively speaking, they would be at a disadvantage in a while. Why a while? Look at those special constructs. They were obviously holding back a bellyful of energy, but they just did not open fire. It was obvious that they were waiting for the 10 or so constructs behind them to get into position and blast down at the same time. With about 40 constructs with the power of origin, even if the realm of order was not destroyed, it would be almost done for. I Ching, get ready to collect the goods. Hurry up and place these things inside the realm of order. That's right, don't move them out. We're digging out the foundation of the second line of defense. If we mess it up, Maple will eat me, and then you. Master Huey's voice suddenly exploded in I Ching's mind. As soon as I Ching turned around, he saw pieces of black, palm-sized cubes falling from mid-air to the ground in the realm of order. He picked them up and looked inside. It seemed that he could see something glowing inside. This, Master Hui, what is this? The foundation of the second line of defense. It's the thing that can't be moved. Fuse it with the void. I Ching seemed to have understood something. He found a good place and pressed a cube into the void. Then a magic array with a diameter of 1,000,000 miles suddenly took shape. The entire magic array flickered with the radiance of energy. He couldn't be more familiar with this thing. Order Disintegration Array, initial version. Yes, it was only a single magic array. He still remembered that this was the main cannon. Bah! This Order Disintegration Magic Array was followed by millions of auxiliary magic arrays. It forcefully strengthened this Order Disintegration Magic Array to the point where order, void, chaos, and everything else would be annihilated into dregs. In short, it was even more powerful. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw the void behind the 1,000,000-mile magic array suddenly ripple. Circles of magic arrays of various sizes appeared behind it and rotated as they landed behind it. An invisible energy connected them to each other and became a whole. Other than the magic array, the black cubes seemed to have found a place to fuse with the void. Suddenly, the magic arrays with indescribable energy covered the entire realm of order. Lord Feng's magic arrays. This familiar energy. I Ching could not help but sigh under the illumination of the light of truth from the billions of magic arrays. Everyone, Lord Feng's light of truth. I Ching took 2 steps forward. Now his waist no longer hurt, and his legs no longer felt like jelly. Even if he was given a great sword, he would be able to stand on the front lines and wield it vigorously. Although the overall order was only attack, because he did not have a great sword, he could only spread his arms slightly and have a compassionate look on his face. Everyone, charge up. Come, let's fire. More than 10 seconds later, before the chaotic constructs on the other side were all in position, a vast energy comparable to the surging of a galaxy rushed forward together with the indiscriminate bombardment of the energy towers toward the army of manifestations and constructs. 1 round of saturated attacks, 1 round of order disintegration magic. The entire void was so clean that it was as if it was the beginning of the world. Wow. Although I knew that Brother Feng's power would be very exaggerated, isn't this too exaggerated? Old Brother Lei, who had rushed back from the rear, could not help but be speechless when he saw this scene. They had been about to fall into a disadvantageous situation, but the situation was reversed just like that. Within their field of vision, they could no longer see the silhouettes of the 40 or so constructs. Only a large number of remnants of the manifestations were left, and they were charging fearlessly toward them. Hui sighed and patted Old Brother Lei's shoulder. It's a basic skill. Stay calm. You will see even more basic skills in the future. For example, Feng in his normal state, or Feng in his berserk state, or Feng in a state where he doesn't care about his own life, or Feng who intends to sacrifice everything to drag the void down with him. Old Brother Lei's face was filled with horror. What kind of strange state are those? In short, they are very dangerous states. The next time you see him personally at the front lines, when you see him shining and not looking right, remember to prepare your defenses so that you won't be able to protect your chrysanthemum. However, that's enough. Hurry up and go save them. Yin Nuoxing shouted as she scolded. The 2 shuddered and hurriedly ran towards the void. Jing Yun was still fighting an army of 1,000 in there. Hopefully, that bastard could hold on for a little longer. Right now, the front line was protected by the array, and the risk of being blown up was very low. Unless the army of the 100 nodes, manifestations, and constructs all surged over at once, and they did not gather along the way, but instead charged over in an orderly manner. Then, if Na Feng was not there, they would have to put their lives on the line to hold on. Wait, bring the things. If you guys fall there, I won't be able to save them. Feng's voice caught up from behind, and along with him were 3 or 4 black cubes. These cubes were as long as a person's face. Hui smiled bitterly at the sight. Feng, tell me honestly, how many things are stuffed inside these cubes? Yin Nuoxing yawned and said, not much, just 30 to 40 formations. They are all backups at the second defensive line. Almost a third of your defensive forces have yet to be deployed. Hui was speechless. As expected, the most insane bastard in the entire void. 30 to 40 formations was nothing, but if they were fully deployed, it would be a conservative estimate of 30 to 40 million formations. If he was even more insane, it would not be impossible for him to have 3 to 400 million formations. Charge out personally. Come to think of it, that was not his mission. In the past, when he was fighting at the front lines of the void, even if he had to go out for a walk or two, it would only be a short distance away. Today was the first time he had gone so deep, and it was mainly to save those idiots who had planned to go around the rear to wreak havoc but ended up trapping him inside. Going deep alone was unparalleled. Jingya and that bastard, why were they all doing things that did not suit him today? Hui thought for a moment and put on layers of energy barriers over his body. He even put on a few layers of guardian barrier. Then he took out his shield and sword and brushed past the army of manifestations. He could not help but mutter, "They can't just insta-kill us, right?" Brother Lei did not know whether to laugh or cry at his fully armed appearance. "Don't worry, you won't die. The other side should be able to escape without throwing a high tier one at us. Sai, at most, we'll die once. We'll be good men again in a dozen days." Hui smiled bitterly. Ever since the spiritual temple came into existence, everyone seemed to be unable to treat death seriously anymore. They thought that dying might not be a big deal, since they could be resurrected anyway. They had already lost their resistance to death. It wasn't that they couldn't understand it, but that they were already numb to it. After all, in the front lines of the void, everyone had already died many times. Even Maple had died once, and only a few were still alive. They were all those who couldn't simply die in the spiritual temple. Why did your face suddenly become strange? Brother Lei had been looking at Hui from the side. He saw that Huey's face suddenly became colorful, and then black. He was stunned. Is the pressure too much? I'm just imagining things. Hui smiled bitterly. He could not possibly tell Brother Lei that he was thinking about something that was hovering between life and death. They were already deep into the army of manifestations. They were not far away from the encirclement that Jing Yun had put up. There were a few big rifts in front of them. They were similar to the rifts that the distorted race had once created. However, they only looked the same on the outside. The rules, order, and aura inside were all different. The manifestations and structures that came out from the rifts all had a chaotic aura, as if they had just formed. Do you think that if we go in from here, we will directly go to the place where the manifestations and structures are directly formed? Hui paused for a second. A dangerous thought was floating in his mind. The silver thunder on Brother Lei's body trembled. Although my intuition tells me that this is the case, if we really jump in, we might not be able to come back. However, it should still be possible to think of a way to close it. According to the signs of the flow of chaotic energy nearby, the core should be Huijun. Save me. We can't beat them. This group of people have eaten explosives. Are you ready for the disintegration of order? Jing Yun's hoarse screams interrupted their contemplation, causing them to not know whether to laugh or cry. They hurriedly rushed into Jing Yun's encirclement. Let's save this idiot first, then we'll talk later. The two people who suddenly rushed into the encirclement were completely inconspicuous, like two sesame seeds that had dropped into the sea. However, the aura that they released, the momentum, and the group of magic circles that were madly increasing behind them instantly attracted the attention of all the manifestations, structures, and people from the underworld. Both sides were stunned. Hui pointed his greatsword forward. His entire body was brimming with a vigorous aura. He opened his mouth and urged them to surrender. Stop. All of you, put your hands on your heads. Surrender and be happy. We do not accept captives. Everyone was speechless. Chapter 1740. The vast and mighty primordial light illuminated the entire void. The aura that originated from the primordial spirit descended on all levels of the void. That aura had already taken shape. In the void, everyone at the void front line could feel the primordial spirit that originated from the birth of the great primordial realm. Moreover, there seemed to be something else amidst it, which made people feel a little uneasy. That power made people from both sides feel a little restless. However, the people from the world of order were still rather calm, because everyone knew who was the one who caused the commotion. As for the people from the underworld, it seemed like they were unable to calm down. They were clearly intending to focus their fire on Node 0, which was why they had reduced the impact on the other nodes in the Void's frontline, intending to concentrate all their forces on Node 0. There had been news from 200 to 300 nodes that all Abyssal Death Shroud forces were converging on Node 0, intending to finish the job in one fell swoop. However, there was a feeling that something was holding them back, that their bodies could not keep up with their minds. They wanted to do so, but they could not, or perhaps they had already done so. Logically speaking, it should not have stopped there. Their aura and suicidal momentum were very fierce, and a chihuahua had pretended to be a large creature that was 4 to 5 meters tall. Although they were definitely not chihuahuas, that was what they were acting like. They could only guess that there was something holding them back. Moreover, looking at their increasingly fierce attacks, it seemed that they were forced to use their own strength. It was likely that some small conspiracy behind the scenes was coming to an end. However, they had no good ideas. They could only fight. If they could kill as many as they could, they would. If they couldn't kill them, they had to kill them. That was the current situation of the battle in the Void front lines. Though he had been hanging like a puppet in the first light, he was also observing the entire battlefield through the augmentation of all order powers in the Void front lines, so that he would not have the time to react if something unexpected were to happen. Well, he was sure that something was going to happen. Now, the problem was where. Node 0 was a good place. It would collapse in one hit. As long as no one survived, the Void of Order would be finished. It was also possible for something to happen in other parts of the Void frontline. They could catch them off guard and break the Void blockade within a minute. Then, they could take the opportunity to enter the world of order and engage in a chaotic battle. The world of order that had lost its position would turn from positional warfare to guerrilla warfare. Its strength would definitely drop by a few hundred levels. So far, everything seems to be going too smoothly. Yin Nuashing couldn't help but murmur softly. As his voice reverberated, strands of energy rippled out from the light of primordial light, as if the void was responding to his words. "How do you feel?" The little angel raised her head in the spiritual world and nodded. The power of the abyssal death mist is already showing signs of being suppressed. The energy and scent that are spreading out now should be a warning. When everything is fully activated, the power of suppression will instantly spread to the entire front line of the void. With any place in the front line as the center, the power of chaos in an entire region of the void will be suppressed. Yin Nuashing heaved a long sigh and shook her head. "I know. I'm asking about your situation. Do you feel any discomfort?" The little angel was stunned for a moment. She stroked her silver hair with a chuckle and said, "I'm fine. What accident can happen in your soul world?" "That's good." Yin Nuashing nodded. It seemed that the large-scale suppression power that was about to appear would not penetrate the spiritual world and affect the life inside. He raised his head and looked at the void where the first light surged. At this moment, a mysterious rune of energy appeared in the void. It was a pattern of golden runes and colorful divine patterns entangled with each other. They flashed in the void according to a fixed frequency, and with each energy tremor, they flashed from near to far like a circle of waves that kept spreading in the void. At this moment, the mysterious pattern had encompassed a considerable area, so large that it could cause the order and rules in a region of the void to lose their original function under its guidance. Reshaping the rules of the void. Yes, he could do it if he wanted to, although the area of effect was only this region of the void, and including the front line of the void, it was only a relatively small region of the void. He could reshape the rules himself, but it would take a long time. The rules and order that he casually created would not play any special role in dealing with the abyssal death mist. And just casually doing it would take a lot of effort and effort. It was a strenuous and thankless task. It was better to just do as he planned. Hold this region of the void, suppress the power of the void, and amplify the power of order. That was all. It's almost time. The three important things had all been fused by him. The doorknob, that was the subcore, had also been reshaped. From a fragment that was casually torn off, it became a diamond-shaped energy crystal that was at least 1,000 feet in size. It was encircled by rings of energy of different sizes, and was currently hanging at the apex where the first light touched the void, acting as an energy node used to sense the void. He was making the final adjustments, and when everything stabilized, that grand energy baptism, that spread across this region of the void would certainly be a symbolic event. But what kind of event would that be? A counterattack event? They were fighting right now, so it couldn't be considered as a counterattack. As for calling it the Horn of Victory, forget it. At most, they would die with more dignity. The main event of the underworld hadn't arrived yet. If anyone said, "We won," after defeating this group of manifestations and constructs, he would definitely slap them from the 8th elemental realm to the 1st elemental realm, and they wouldn't even need to teleport in between. So what kind of event would that be? Forget it. If I can't figure it out, I'll just ignore it. Let's just treat it as a turning point. Maybe they would be the one to suppress the other party from now on, or maybe the other party would become angry out of humiliation and press them into the void to beat them up even more violently. Why is my mind getting more and more distracted towards the end? Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly upon hearing that. Because it's very serious. It's a very serious matter. Whatever the world of order does will cause the other side to target them severely. I have to make plans in advance. Well, although my plans are limited to a few steps, but it's not impossible to jump out of the box occasionally. After all, warriors can also serve as support. The little angel was slightly stunned. What are you planning to do? Yin Nuoxing grinned, but did not continue the topic. He continued, "Now, I'm just worried about this counterattack. No, mischievous. How would it agitate the other party? What a difficult problem. If they did not resist, they would be pressed into the void and beaten up. If they counterattacked, it would be like playing with them. They would be even more excited to press them down and beat them up. What kind of void joke is this? Are they treating us like brothels?" She was a little worried when she saw a pair of eyes that flickered with some kind of profound dark energy. That little fool must be thinking about some kind of even more reckless and brutal backup power. That power was enough to make the entire void tremble. As long as he judged that even if there was only a 50% chance of success, he would not hesitate to charge forward, just like that time 100 billion years ago. She felt that he might have sensed something following the movement in the void. Perhaps it was some kind of intuition. Just as they were thinking about some kind of extremely dangerous thing at the same time, a soft and clear energy hum sounded like the first melody of soft plucking tune, quietly echoing under the void. Accompanied by that sky-piercing light, all life in the void front line noticed this soft hum. "Now, time's up. Come." The abyssal death mist spawn and those huge chaos constructs suddenly froze at that moment. The scarlet in their eyes instantly turned into a deep darkness. Then, like a stone statue, they froze in their last movement, causing everyone in the void front line to tremble. This is... Hui was also stunned when he saw the sudden stiffening of the spawn and constructs in front of him. That soft melody only sounded in his heart at that moment. He quickly turned around and looked behind, slightly widening his eyes, and shouted in joy through the soul transmission. "It's done, it's done. Maple's done over there. Everyone's riled up. Press them all into the void for me to take a bath." That ray of primordial light was still endlessly transmitting its primordial aura into the void. As the crystal suspended high in the void trembled slightly, two energy halos, one bright and the other dark, quietly formed. Then they quickly swept across the entire void. The two halos, accompanied by the initial presence, swept through the entire void front line through the nodes. Every manifestation, construct, and abyssal death shroud that appeared near the realm of order were all dealt a destructive blow. Countless manifestations and constructs were instantly vaporized, truly so cleanly that not even a single strand of energy was left behind, having been completely wiped out. So exciting? Hui was also stunned for a moment. He did not expect that there would be such an effect. This was not considered weakening, but directly purifying the power to eliminate chaos. Wasn't it directly purifying those bastards? Brother Thunder took a few glances and reacted. He shook his head. It's just that the energy disturbance at the moment when the realm is released is too great. Because this power has been accumulated for a long time. When it is released in an instant, as long as it has something to do with chaos within the realm, it will definitely not be able to escape. However, it's only for an instant to cut off the reaction of the chaos energy. Take advantage of the fact that they can't move now and quickly kill them. On the other hand, Jing Yun and the others instantly unleash their full power, unleashing all of their energy without the slightest bit of hesitation. Just the might of their normal energy attacks was already enough. Just by unleashing their attacks in all directions, they were able to harvest countless manifestations. Take it easy over there. Be careful. Hui had just reminded them when his expression changed. He hurriedly withdrew his guardian shield and rushed toward Jing Yun. The shield propped up a huge energy barrier in front of it, deflecting a chaos attack that had surged out from a large crack to one side. The chaos energy that was abnormally powerful and destructive made Huey's expression tremble. When this energy rushed into the realm, it was instantly weakened by more than 20%. However, it still caused his guardian shield to tremble violently. Just by deflecting it, the shield flickered as if it was about to collapse. Oh, high energy reaction. Hurry up and retreat. The other side is going crazy. Brother Lei's expression changed abruptly when Hui withstood the massive chaotic impact. They had opened a dozen cracks in the vicinity, but there were still 20 to 30 large cracks that had yet to be closed. At this moment, 3 of the large cracks suddenly emitted an extremely surging and vast aura, causing Brother Lei's expression to change. High energy reaction. Hui was stunned when he heard this. For him, a mid-level yuansher, to say these words, wouldn't that mean? Brother Thunder did not have time to respond to any more questions. He waved his hand and threw out a torrent of energy, hitting the chaos attack that was coming from the front to the side. He stretched out his hands to grab Hui Jun and Jing Yun and hurriedly ran away. Hey, it wasn't easy to get an advantage, and now it's messed up again. Forget it. Since we're already here, we have to take some things with us before we leave. Hui roared and used all his strength to pierce through the guardian shield with the sword of the guardian. Then he used all his strength to throw the shield out. Like a golden meteor, it pierced through the void. The surging divine energy expanded by more than 10,000 times in just a few breaths, shattering all the manifestations and structures that were still in the state of being petrified. Then, it crashed into a large scarlet crack. The divine light boiled and exploded. The dazzling energy storm swept out for hundreds of millions of miles, crushing the fissure that had collided head-on into ashes. The countless manifestations and structures in the surroundings were in a defenseless state, and they would be annihilated just by being grazed by the divine energy. Who knew how many manifestations had been annihilated within the range of the storm? The divine storm did not wreak havoc for long. The 3 vast auras that Brother Lei had just sensed had become much stronger again. In just a few seconds, they quickly became clear. A moment later, the divine storm suddenly paused. An energy that was many times stronger than before surged out from within. It pierced through the divine storm and chased after the 3 of them. Fisk, I'm too slow. Brother Lei suddenly turned around. The silver lightning on his body flashed and was about to block the attack. A golden light suddenly descended on the 3 of them, startling them. Before they could react, their bodies had already been swept away by the light. The energy that had pierced through the void like a soul-chasing spirit had also pounced on empty air. Everyone shrink the defense line. Everyone return to the realm of order. Quick! As soon as they returned to the realm of order, Hui waved his hand as soon as he landed. Then, he hurriedly poured out all the energy towers that he had brought with him. Lines of energy runes appeared and connected all of them into one. Throw out all the energy towers, all the energy crystals. Take out all the special crystals that contain the origin energy, reserve echelon. The large equivalents that I asked you to prepare, start gathering energy now. Gather energy without limit. It won't be a problem to destroy as many energy towers and energy crystals as you want. Get ready for a destructive force that can sink the entire void into nothingness. Brother Lei was also shocked by the continuous yelling. He hurriedly shouted through the soul transmission. Sister Qing, Sui Feng, hurry up and get ready. There are three super troublemakers at the front line. Gather everyone's origin energy. Bring our guys and get ready to fight. TSK, they're too early. I didn't expect that they would come to deal with the realm just as it was formed. But that's to be expected. We're also prepared. Hui swore as he poured tons of energy crystals onto the ground. He did not feel the slightest heartache as he stuffed them into the energy towers. The energy aura of these tens of thousands of energy towers skyrocketed by tens of thousands of levels in just half a minute. He had a ferocious look on his face as he said, "Fortunately, they did not do anything for the past 100 billion years. We have accumulated 100 billion years worth of energy, resentment, and hatred here, you bastards." Lord Huey's overflowing resentment and anger swept through the realm of order, causing the people who were already rushing to act to tremble. They didn't need anyone to remind them at all to recall the light that shone in the void 100 billion years ago. That scene caused them to be filled with irritation and fury. A group of people simply turned the spatial array upside down and threw everything on the ground regardless of what was inside. They all knew what had happened, and right now, it was just happening again. Jing Yun returned from the distance, carrying a crystal pillar that was 1,000 feet tall. He quickly came to the front of the realm of order and placed the crystal pillar right in front of the realm of order. It's here. This thing is ready. It's specially made for these damn things. Gather all the energy gathered by the energy towers here. It was a colorful energy tower made entirely of energy crystals. As for what energy it was, what else could it be other than origin energy? However, it was made from 147 types of origin energy. Every inch of space was engraved with dense energy runes, each rune not much bigger than a strand of hair. It was so densely engraved that the crystalline energy tower appeared to be covered in a layer of golden light. Notify all Void frontline personnel. Leave 2/3 of the energy in each node, and gather the rest through the origin node to node 0. Vast energy streams converge from all over the void through the origin temple toward node 0 in a mere 5 seconds. The origin temple that stood at the very center of the void was as bright as an extremely violent sun. Jingyan had to suppress the dazzling light so that everyone would not be blinded. The mighty holy energy storm slowly dissipated, leaving only scattered manifestations and broken structures lying in the background. No one had the time to care about the defeated soldiers. At the spot where the storm had disappeared, 3 figures that looked no different from ordinary people slowly appeared. The unusually surging and vast energy aura penetrated the void and landed in the order domain of Node 0, causing everyone's heart to sink. Then, everyone's eyes became ferocious, and the speed at which they gathered energy increased by several notches. World of Order. You really think we don't have anyone to deal with you? The cold voice was just like the high-tier Yuanshi who was sacrificed in the void the last time they met. It was directly transmitted to them through the void and the realm of order. Do you see that damn thing? Divert the energy of the energy towers. Gather the power of the origin temple. Shoot them down. Hui regenerated the guardian's sword and yelled as he pointed at the 3 damned things in the distant void, his body trembling in golden light. Wait, this energy might not be enough. Wait a moment, just in case. Brother Lei hurriedly waved his hand to calm the restless crowd. With a third of the Void's frontline strength and nearly 100 billion years' worth of resources, coupled with the 147 origin energy creations that Brother Maple had provided as the final node and energy discharge point, if these things were to be blasted into a pot of chaos, the three high-tier primeval would definitely lose a layer of skin, even if they did not die. But they did not want to see that happen. They just wanted the enemy to be completely and utterly dead. You rats. Every time you come out, all you do is spout nonsense. The murmurs that seemed to fall from nothingness reverberated throughout the entire void. The roaring movement seemed to be the awakening of the will of the void, which made the irritable people in Hui and order calm down a little. Then they continued to lower their heads and hurriedly gather energy and continue to gather energy. A figure accompanied by the light of origin and the light of chaos appeared at the forefront of the realm of order. The colorful azure wings behind her fluttered even though there was no wind, and the movement of the entire void swayed gently with the fluttering of the azure wings. The initial light fell in front of her. Yun Nuashing slowly opened her colorful eyes and stared at the three figures in the void. They are the same as you. Relying on their absolute power, their conceit and arrogance, they fell here. You have concerns, I can see that. No, it's not just you. The underworld itself has concerns. As a race of the last era, it's fun to be on both sides during the war between order and chaos, isn't it? Being a fence-sitter is quite easy for you, isn't it? Until the end, you succeeded and retreated. After surviving that disaster, you showed your power in this era and did whatever you wanted. You are as timid as mice. Can you understand our determination and willingness to face death with equanimity? The three high-level primeval's expression gradually turned gloomy. What she said was **T. When they knew that the situation was fixed, who would casually put their lives on the table as a card to be casually played? Even if they could be reincarnated after death, whether they could come back to this place was another matter altogether. High-level primeval. The underworld. How much did they sacrifice for this step? That's right. The situation was fixed. The situation was fixed. But none of them expected the world of order to be so tenacious. They also had the power of the heavenly god of origin, but it was only the power that they stole. After all, it was not comparable to the power that they really left for the world of order. Otherwise, they would not have been unable to take down the world of order for so long. Afraid of death? Nonsense. Moreover, a war would only start when one side had an absolute advantage, unless there was some kind of monstrous hatred. They should have been the former. Perhaps they thought they had the absolute advantage. Yun Nuashing sneered when she saw the murderous look on the faces of the three of them. She slowly spread her arms, and the light of primordial on her body surged even more violently. Hey, primordial heavenly god and primordial heavenly god. You arrogant winners. In front of you is the world of order that you can conquer anytime and anywhere. Come and kill us. In front of you is the entire world of order that you have been dreaming of. Kill us, and everything will be yours. What? Don't dare to attack? You don't dare to fight with me? Take a gamble? Haha. You think that victory is within your grasp, so you're not willing to gamble with your lives, right? Unfortunately, you don't dare, but I do. Abnormally surging origin energy surged out and engulfed the entire region of the void. A massive planetary system with several stars descended upon the front lines of the void along with the light of primordial. The surging origin energy, the light that could disturb the void and the void. Brother Lei felt as if his eyes were going blind. The number of origin energy definitely exceeded 147. Oh no, this energy. The expression of the leader of the three changed drastically. This was the energy that he had used to kill their great guardian last time, and it was definitely more unreasonable than 100 billion years ago. That uncompromising determination and madness was enough to shake them all. Come and fight. This is the war that you have been longing for. This is the result of your prayers. This is your long-cherished wish, your path. Kill me. Destroy the world of order. Otherwise, I will let all of you die in the primordial world. Chapter 1741. Fire. Several roars with different tones, but the same meaning resounded in the void at the same time. The terrifying amount of energy that had gathered in the realm of order surged into the giant crystal tower in an instant. The light that bloomed in an instant overshadowed Yin Nuoxing's light that illuminated the void. The light that was enough to shatter the void, after condensing for a moment, suddenly burst out with the explosion of an energy ring. It crossed the void in an instant and pounced on the three high-level primeval gods in the distance. The three high-level primeval gods were shocked by Yin Nuoxing's crazy attitude and quickly recovered. Looking at the light that had gathered the energy of the entire void front, their eyes became unusually serious. With a wave of their hand, the abnormally active chaotic energy suddenly came from the abyssal death fog crack behind them, turning the scarlet light of the crack into a dark gray light. A moment later, the abyssal death fog and the dark gray chaotic energy spewed out of the crack and quickly formed a huge energy barrier in front of them. Boom! The indescribable sound of energy destruction suddenly spread throughout the void territory in the next moment. The void was instantly skinned under the impact of the unreasonably destructive energy and went on strike with the void. It was instantly annihilated like two realms that were destroyed. Block! The energy explosion that encompassed hundreds of millions of miles of land before him did not obstruct his observation. The brilliant light that seemed to have gathered all colors instantly crashed into the energy barrier formed by the three high-level primeval gods, and was blocked just like that. It's only temporarily blocked, but TSK, as expected, three high-level primeval gods are not that easy to kill. Jingyan cursed as she clapped her hands and waved them. Continue to pour energy into the void front. Leave a minimum amount of energy in the void front to protect the void lock circle. Gather the rest. We have to continue to increase the energy before they react. If they react and open up their divine right domain, this attack will be wasted. Then just make it so that they can't react. An indifferent voice echoed in everyone's ears along with the echoes in the void. Everyone trembled and turned their heads around. Yin Nuoxing slowly raised his hand, and the primordial light on his body trembled slightly. The light gradually changed and turned inside out. The energy of chaos took over the main body, while the energy of order surrounded the chaos and expanded rapidly. The huge stellar system spun at a high speed and fell from above, slowly merging with the gradually expanding original light. All the energy flowing in the realm of order also began to gather towards it uncontrollably, causing the light that symbolized the creation of the great Yuan realm and the light released by the world core to become the only thing in this void. Throughout the entire void, as long as one had the time to look into the void, even if they were not in this region of the void, they could still clearly see this beam of light descending into the void. I'll break through their defenses. I'll leave the rest to you. Yin Nuoxing turned her head slightly, looking at Hui, Brother Lei, and the others with a pair of colorful eyes and a pair of dull gray eyes. Can you do it? Brother Lei suddenly came back to his senses. That was actually a question for him. He nodded fiercely, the silver lightning on his body surging even more violently. No problem. Suifeng, are you ready? Get ready to kill those three bastards. It's coming, it's coming. What the F***CK is this? One figure after another descended into the order domain along with the vast aura of origin. The moment they came out, they saw the vast energy impact that spanned across millions of miles. They also saw the light that was constantly releasing the aura of creation above their heads. The group of people who had just come out were all stunned, especially when they sensed over 100 types of origin energy above their heads. It was even more, so much, so that they were about to go blind. Don't stare at that place for too long. We can't even hold it ourselves. Brother Lei quickly came to his side and put on the thing that Hui brought for him, a pair of boxing gloves. Then, he pointed at the place where the vast energy light shone. Do you see that place? There are 3 bastards that are being shown on by the truth of the void. They are holding on for now. Later, when you break through their defenses, Brother Lay suddenly drew a silver light in front of his neck, and everyone expressed that they understood. Suifeng slowly raised her head and looked at the primordial aura. Her blue starry eyes reflected the figure in the light as she whispered softly, "It's very dangerous. His condition is very dangerous. So, there's only one chance." Hui rubbed his hands with a gloomy expression. "Don't think about sharing anything with that guy. His talent is to play with his life. This is the mission that he has branded for himself. What we need to do is to clean up the mess after he plays with his life. That's all." If that's the case, Suifeng turned around and looked at everyone around her. Then she nodded. "I won't let you down. Creation of the void, chaos, collapse of nothingness. An indescribable pressure suddenly appeared in the void and nothingness that had already collapsed. A distortion came from this empty area. It was a strange feeling of distortion and chaos that was enough to swallow the entire primordial realm. The storm gathered from nothing to engulf the entire void in an instant. Everyone who could see this scene felt their hearts skip a beat. An aura that was enough to reduce the void to 0. It was as if they had returned to 100 billion years ago and witnessed this scene with their own eyes. In Yun Nuoxing's eyes, 2 tiny arrays slowly rotated and quietly shattered. The energy that had already gone completely out of control was forcefully restrained in her hands. Her right hand, that was full of cracks, bloomed with the light of the fusion of chaos and order. Her raised hands moved slowly, and an overlapping array that had already gathered trillions of arrays appeared in front of her. It was like a thick cake of light. "Go, fall into the void." The mighty flash that seemed to have condensed the entire void flickered for a short half a second before suddenly exploding. It was as if a large piece of the void had been ripped off from its concept and rules. It brought with it a light that was powerful enough to beat the primordial realm back to its original point and broke away from the realm of order. In front of the big crack, the 3 people who were frantically resisting the vast stream of light were desperately releasing all kinds of high-level premier powers, the power of divinity and the power of godly right. The 7 divine halos behind them were constantly shaking because the power that they could mobilize in a short period of time could not keep up with the consumption. It seemed like they would collapse at any time. "No, this light can't be neutralized by normal means. We can't completely block the attack that has condensed half of the power of the world of order and the power of the heavenly god of origin." A dignified and low voice sounded from the leader's mouth. The mighty torrent that had condensed half of the weight of the void of order kept bursting with energy that made the 3 of them shudder. Their shadows were elongated by the colorful light, and 3 lonely figures were projected in the void and the big crack behind them. Ironically, the condensed energy barrier in front of them had already been broken by half. They resisted with all their might and kept detonating the power of godly right and divinity to barely hold the stream of light in place. But as long as the group opposite them did not withdraw this attack, they would still have to pay a heavy price to neutralize this desperate light. World of Order. World of Order. TSK. I've underestimated these fellows. I thought that the origin would be gone forever. He gritted his teeth and kept condensing energy. Origin. Fortunately, they did not change their own order nature and still belonged to the power of order. If the power of chaos were to receive this attack head-on, with the destructive power of countless order and rules in this attack, they would probably have been reduced to ashes by now. As he muttered, he suddenly felt a sense of uneasiness. His gaze penetrated the barrier and looked in front of him that was covered by the light. His uneasy gaze suddenly saw that in the void, the first light that was tainted with the gray of chaos. A pair of eyes that contained both order and chaos met his gaze, and his heart unnaturally skipped a beat. "Fall into this void, rat." A cold voice rang in his ears, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. A light that was tainted with gray but was so bright that no living being could look directly at it. That was chaos. It was the power of chaos. The moment he identified it, his face turned pale with fright. However, at this time, they were restrained by this stream of light. There was no way for them to activate the barrier of order to deal with the power of chaos. That light of energy that was like a supernova that exploded with billions of stars smashed heavily on their barrier, fusing with the colorful light. The two powers of order tore apart the divine barrier that they had put up in an instant, and the two colors of light that rushed towards him swallowed him whole. Chaos. Endless chaos. Yet it was also incomparably pure order. That light, heavy, it contained the endless sorrow and tears of the world of order. He seemed to have seen something in it, but he could not grasp it. Was this the light at the beginning of the birth of the great primordial realm? No wonder that person said that they had to be wary of the realm of gods. Boom! The monstrous energy ended with an explosive sound that shattered the void and suddenly dissipated. He was immersed in the two energies for as long as an era. When he came back to his senses, his whole body was pressed into the void by the two energies, and he did not know how far away they were. He only felt that his divine soul had been torn apart, and his body was no longer listening to him. He did not know where the energy came from, but it was still supporting him to stand in the void. Even his body was no longer in shape. At the same time, the energy runes that were tainted with the power of order and chaos climbed up his broken body. He could feel that the energy runes that were constantly spreading were eroding his body and soul, and using his own power to deal with himself. In the distant void, probably in the direction where he had retreated, two vast and mighty energy raindrops bloomed in the void. The vast and mighty phenomenon occupied the entire void. It was incomparably splendid. The abnormally surging and mighty energy sprinkled all over the void. It was as if there was an energy explosion, exploding in the form of several energy rings. It spread very far away before slowly dissipating. This made him absent-minded. The last time he had seen this scene should have been more than a dozen epochs ago. Ugh. He raised his hand and used the remaining divine energy to cut a scarlet energy rift in front of him and staggered into the rift. This is not over. Not over. I have to go back quickly. I have misjudged the remaining power of the world of order. I have to tell them. At the place where the vast light rain sprinkled, Brother Lei looked up abruptly into the distance. I found the remaining one, but it's too late to go after him. Sui Qing looked at that place and narrowed her eyes. He has escaped, but it's fine. His body and soul have been tainted with the chaotic power of the original light, directly damaging his divinity. If it wasn't for the heavenly god of origin or the conceptual body of chaos, he would not have escaped death. But if we let him escape this time, the previous information about the underworld's misjudgment of the power of the world of order would also be sent back. Hui frowned as he felt a headache and then laughed bitterly. Although, even if he doesn't return, the other side would have more or less sensed this information. It's just that we don't know what they would do next. Defense. Can we also? Just as we suddenly came up with a plan that seemed feasible, a voice suddenly rang in everyone's mind. They have misgivings. They think that victory is already in their hands and are unwilling to gamble with their lives with us, which is why they keep making mistakes. But we? No, I have no misgivings in the first place. If they die, they die. War? That's right, but it's not just that. In the battlefield between order and chaos, there is only destruction and destruction, and this life is nothing more than that. It's not a loss to kill one of the higher tiers, and it's a gain to kill two of them. Excluding this point, we actually have our own misgivings. Hui, you must have wanted to say that since we already have the power to defeat a higher tier premier, why don't we just go straight to the underworld? It's very simple. The underworld is still being held back by something. Their power is not complete from the beginning to the end, and they are only constantly sending cannon fodder, wanting to wear down the power of the void of order more or less. But they keep making mistakes one after another. 100 billion years ago, the fall of a higher tier premier was definitely not part of their plan, but they still endured and suppressed it, which only means that they're still preparing for their trump card that can turn the situation around. This is a good time. Yes, it should be a good time. Phone. Hui laughed dryly and quickly waved his hand to bring everyone back to the realm of order. When he looked at Phone, he could not help but be stunned, and his face was filled with worry. Are you okay? The initial light and the heart of the world had been retracted, and Yin Nuoxing stood in the void with a sword. His body was pale, and the body made of energy was full of cracks, and the light of energy was bursting out uncontrollably. Such a ferocious scene stunned Brother Lei and the others. Needless to say, but it was really the first time they saw Phone like this, and they immediately put a label in their hearts. This is a guy who doesn't care about his life, enough to drag the void down with him. Brother Lei felt that he seemed to understand what Hui Jun said to him. It's okay, I'm used to it. His upper body was full of cracks, and he looked like a broken porcelain doll. Everyone was silent when they heard his words, and looked through his body to see the realm of order behind him. Their faces were filled with horror, and their heads were covered in cold sweat. God knows how this guy tortured himself in the past. Even for an energy life form, this level of damage was almost to the point where it would break with a touch. Does not mean that for him, temporarily not dying meant that there was no problem. We saw that Phone did not seem to have any problems, so he did not mention it for the time being. He waved his hand to let I Ching deal with the realm of order first, and stood there to wait for him to nag, and when Phone was done, he would press him to recover. The timing you mentioned just now was supposed? Hui asked. Yes, it was. Now that we have the power to punish high-level primeval, and the underworld is calculating its own little plan, this should be a good time to attack. But we can't seize this opportunity. There are two problems. First, we want to go to the underworld, but there are not many ways to go, and all of them are very dangerous, and difficult to execute. This is the first problem. Second, we can only use positional warfare to our advantage, and positional warfare. Sai, we have already gone to other people's homes. Where would we have the time to build a positional warfare? The Void Frontline is a powerful defensive position that we have been working on for hundreds of billions of years, constantly improving and strengthening. Although we can also build a temporary position with our own power, it is only a temporary realm of order and completely not at the level of the Void Frontline. Everyone could not help but smile bitterly. To put it simply, they had switched from fighting at home to fighting away, and they had no advantage. And it seemed to be the case. Although they seemed to be able to kill the high-level primeval sent by the underworld, that was the power of the Void Frontline, and Yin Nuoxing could only be unleashed when she risked her life, and there was no way to use this power frequently. After all, they did not have any high-level primeval, and that was their biggest shortcoming. As for sending a team to attack, and then shrinking the Void Frontline to the underworld in one go, this is a feasible way. The former should be possible, with me leading and more than 100 primeval covering, unless there are more than a dozen high-level primeval blocking the way. Otherwise, it should not be a problem to attack. But to move the Void Frontline, it is almost like digging out the Void Frontline and the void it encompasses. Can you guys do it by carrying half of the middle plane and countless middle planes? This is not the same as teleporting the Void Frontline back in the current void. None of us know what the situation in the underworld is like. That is someone else's world, not our void of order. Everyone smiled bitterly. Hui rarely used his brain and thought of many things in his mind, but in the end, they were all dead in the cradle. The Origin Sanctum. What if we only bring the Origin Sanctum there? Jing Nuoxing asked in return. The Void Frontline, formed by more than 1,000 Origin nodes, should be able to create the same power as in the Void of Order now, right? The Origin Sanctum is, after all, just a core that occupies less than half of the Void Frontline. Yin Nuoxing shook her head slightly. Even if we really have a way to deal with 1, 2, 3, or even 10 high-level primeval, we have no way to fight against the power of high-level primeval head-on. Hui and the others sighed bitterly again. This was the truth. In the face of absolute power, unless they used the power of the same level to fight, Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Once they rushed into the underworld and caused a riot, the result would not be good. Not to mention other things, if the underworld threw out 5 or 6 high-level primeval to besiege the void frontline at the same time, how many places could they defend? Yin Nuashing sighed when he saw everyone shaking their heads with bitter smiles. It's obvious. That's why we can only defend. This is our advantage, but it's also our most passive point. If we defend, we won't be able to destroy the underworld. If we attack, we won't be able to achieve any obvious results. We might even die inside. This is the reality woven by the void frontline, the cruelest reality for us. There is no way to escape, and there is no way to change it. If we defend here, we can only ask for a moment of peace. In the end, we can't let all of this come to an end. When the underworld has finished its business, there is nothing to worry about. Yin Nuashing's eyelids drooped slightly, and she let out a long sigh. Then perhaps that time has come, hundreds of billions of years, fighting for more than a dozen eras, and ushering in their final end. It sounded ridiculous, but there was no way to choose, and there was no way to change the result. Woo, the horn, an earth-shattering sound of the horn, accompanied by an ancient aura that transcended time, reverberated in the void frontline. The expressions of everyone in the realm of order changed. The other places in the void frontline also heard this unusually grand sound of the horn, as if it was guiding the warriors standing on the battlefield to charge. This sound, Brother Lei's expression became a little unnatural when he heard the sound of the horn. He, Sui Feng, and Sui Qing looked at each other. We looked at them and asked, "What? Is it something that belongs to the previous era? Your era?" Sui Qing nodded slightly and said, "It should be the horn of order that the origin heavenly god gave to the underworld. At that time, the underworld was still fighting for the realm of order. I just didn't expect that kind of thing to happen later." Brother Lei smiled bitterly, and then his expression became distressed. "This is troublesome. The horn of order was originally used to increase the power of the realm of order. But now, in the void far away, scarlet cracks silently opened, and the abyss death mist rolled out. Along with the huge tide, countless incarnations and chaos constructs swept out. The aura of order on them made them fall into a deeper level of madness. The aura of madness spread to them through the void frontline, and everyone's expression became serious. The aura of a high-level yuan-shi. Sui Qing gazed at one place and said softly, "One. Hiss. What I'm afraid of really happens. Are these guys done yet?" Hui scratched his head in distress and said, "The realm of order is urgently reorganizing. Are there any energy towers that can continue to overload? Crystals? Don't worry. The high-level yuan-shi will not come personally." Yin Nuashing also caught the powerful aura and interrupted Huey's emergency preparations. "Before they know our strength, they will not come personally. They can no longer afford to lose the high-level yuan-shi. He is probably here to lead the cannon fodder to continue the attack. The Horn of War, announcing the arrival of the final battle. The realm has taken shape." Yin Nuashing looked up and said something that stunned everyone. "The path from the pinnacle of origin to the level of yuan-shi is unobstructed, and the realm of chaos has taken shape. My job is done, and the rest. I'll leave it to you guys for now. Hey, Foam!" We hurriedly caught the guy who fell to the side after he finished speaking. He smiled bitterly and said, "You just said that it's the eve of the final battle, and now you are lying down? All right, thank you for your hard work. You should go and rest first." After asking Sui Feng to send the guy into the Origin Sanctum, we turned to look at Brother Lei and the others and shrugged. "There's nothing else I can do. I'll have to trouble you guys this time." Brother Lei grinned. "It's just a final battle. What's there to be afraid of? Just fight. I didn't catch up with the battle a dozen years ago. This time, I can make up for it. The warriors of order are not afraid of the power of chaos." Chapter 1742. The sound of the ancient horn, accompanied by the sound of destruction, resounded in the void. It ignored all barriers and transmitted to every corner of the void. Billions of worlds and countless lives heard this long and heavy sound. They looked at the void with a solemn and doubtful gaze. They felt an ancient calling that wanted them to go there personally. However, within this call, there was an indescribable hostility. The dull sound of the horn reverberated in the void. Whether it was in the void of order or the void of chaos, this ancient sound that could not be stopped reverberated. It was as if billions of stars were trembling and echoing. Billions of worlds were swaying and resonating. Its momentum was like waves crashing against the shore. It caused the order and the laws to tremble. It was enough to shatter the void. In the depths of the void, in a place that was hidden from prying eyes, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. Staring at the void that was filled with billions of worlds, the voice softly murmured, "The origin has already passed away. Why bother to disturb the void that is still riddled with holes?" Silence. Invisible waves rippled like water. They quietly spread and then disappeared into the void. Then, everything quieted down. The sound of the horn that shook the void disappeared without a trace. The void returned to its deathly silence. Sigh. After such a long time, when can I wait for the end? The gloomy void flickered with traces of dark gold and silver light, splashing some energy ripples in the void. As the murmur and the sound of the horn disappeared, the place once again regained its eternal silence. At the front line of the void, the loud sound of the horn resonated and shook the void. The derivatives and the constructs were infected by the power of order in the resonance and became even more violent. The collision of the two powers of order caused their bodies to undergo abnormal changes. It was already strange enough. Now, it was better not to delve into that strange state. If I did, I would lose my rationality. Invisible ripples silently streaked across the void, and the annoying bugle horn that kept ringing in their ears suddenly disappeared. Everyone at the front line of the void was shocked, and in the midst of the battle, they shifted a tenth of their attention to the void behind them. The vast and boundless void of order was completely empty, and there was no movement at all. There were some energy waves coming from the Scarlet Rift. The energy resonance that shook the void was suddenly cut off, startling the people inside. The resonance of Order of the Horn of Order is cut off. There's such a person in the Order Void. As expected, this damned Order Void really couldn't treat them as lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They had already gone overboard 3 or 4 times. Fortunately, they were more cautious this time. If they were to charge out like that fellow who had his body and soul destroyed the moment he came back, wouldn't he have turned into a sea of light by now? But it doesn't matter. The resonance of the Horn of Order has already strengthened the derivatives and the constructs. Time will slowly pass. A surge of chaos energy overflowed from the Scarlet Rift. Countless derivatives and constructs rushed out of the rift amidst roars and roars, fearlessly charging towards the void blockade. Why did the horn stop? Jing Yin turned to look at the void of order and frowned in suspicion. It seems like there was something in the void of order just now. Don't mention it, don't ask, and don't care. Hui wiped away the chaos energy that was smeared all over his face and waved his hand. There are always many hidden things in the void. If we go too deep into it, we won't have the time to care about the mess before us. Yeah, Maple said so, and I'll add probably so by the way. Jing Yin smiled bitterly. He looked at the greatsword that he had picked up from God knows where and threw it into the void. Divine runes and runes condensed into a long spear in his hand. His body melted into the void like smoke, and when he reappeared, he was already behind a fledgling. The long spear in his hand pierced through the fledgling without any hindrance. The energy of the runes exploded and shook the fledgling into a vast rain of light. After that, he disappeared from where he was. Appearing from the void like smoke and brandishing his long spear, Jing Yun, who was about to unleash his might, suddenly froze. Beside him, tens of thousands of derivatives and a dozen constructs were all staring at him. The energy that was condensed in their hands was shining brightly. Tens of thousands of pairs of scarlet eyes the size of meteors and planets were staring at him, causing him to break out in cold sweat. Well, let's talk things over. Boom! A bright light that was as bright as a supernova burst out from a corner of the void. That vibration and that movement made Hui stunned. He quickly broke the Guardian's shield in half and threw it out. He rushed over like a meteor and quickly returned to the domain of order. Hey! Hui quickly ran to Jingyun's side. He saw that his entire body was emitting smoke. The heat was shocking. Under the illumination of the order energy, white smoke was quickly emitting from his body. It looked as if he had rolled around in a hell scene before he was fished out. Ew, you're cooked through. Jingyun's face was charred. He raised his hand and gave a thumbs up. Then his arm fell to the side with a thud and no longer moved. The movement of the chaotic energy slamming into the domain of order brought Hui back to reality. He quickly turned his head. The group of chaotic constructs had already pressed down in front of the domain of order. The moment they entered the attack range, they began to bombard it indiscriminately. Hui swung his hand and threw Jingyun into the Temple of Origins. He ignored the elegant gesture made by the charred piece of coal and came to the front of the domain of order. He pressed his palm on the colorful energy tower. The Guardian's holy energy shone brightly. It carried a torrent of energy that penetrated the void and exploded like a wave. It hit the few chaotic constructs that had broken through the energy seal. Those few big blocks burst out with the energy of the abyssal death mist. They looked like they were emitting smoke as they fell into the void. They were swarmed by the holy energy and the chaos of the void and disintegrated completely. These guys are determined to destroy Node Zero's domain of order. Hui swung his burning palm and grinned. Since the high-tier primeval blew his trumpet and intended to bury the world of order in a coffin, attack the world of order, those manifestations and constructs were not just a little bit stronger than before. They were completely targeting the domain of order when they fought. They would launch 1 or 2 attacks at the domain of order whenever there was a gap. They would also travel a long distance just to slap the domain of order. Then, they would be pulverized by the boundless order energy. We noticed that there was a lot of black energy left in the void. It looked like the abyssal death mist. There were spots of scarlet light in the black. It looked very similar. However, its presence was a little more advanced than the abyssal death mist. However, it was a few levels weaker than the abyssal death mist. What's that black energy? Brother Thunder, who was fighting in the void, took the time to look around when he heard the voice in his soul. I don't know. I've only been here for a while, so I don't know. Looking at you, isn't that the trash left behind after the abyssal death mist dies? No. Hui shook his head. These things didn't exist before. Let me take a look for you. Brother Thunder responded with a howl. His palm suddenly pinched a manifestation that had darted out from a void. Silver lightning swarmed over and crushed it. He found a more spacious place and spread his arms slightly. The silver lightning on his body condensed to the size of a sun within a few seconds. The violent lightning and order energy instantly attracted the attention of countless manifestations and structures in this area. They actually suddenly gave up on the order domain and charged at him. The shadows of blades and swords flashed, and the death fog of the abyss surged violently. It was as if a celestial dog was devouring the sun, wanting to swallow that silver sun into its mouth. Silver Dragon. A thunderous roar dispersed the approaching abyssal death mist. The silver sun suddenly became like a porcupine. Millions of silver lightning bolts that were at least 100,000 miles long surged out of it. Along with thunderous rumbles, they charged towards various places in the void. That rampaging energy merely brushed past them. The energy shockwaves were enough to turn manifestations and constructs into energy and dissipate. We stared at the vicinity of the silver sun and paid attention. Among the tens of millions of manifestations that Brother Thunder had destroyed in a wide area, there were quite a few remnants of the black fog. It was as if the remnants were left after they were destroyed. Furthermore, the further away they were from the direct attack, the greater the amount of black fog energy remaining. Soon, a portion of the black fog would drift out and gather towards the direction of the Great Rift. The black fog that gathered from all directions surged into the Great Rift. After a brief moment, they turned into manifestations and reappeared. Was this reclaiming energy? Was this regenerating 1,000 from 10,000? That's cheating. He was so shocked that he almost swallowed his tongue. He had never seen such a cheating method before. That amount itself was enough to violate the rules. Now, it was even regenerating energy by itself. How is it? Did you find anything? Millions of dancing lightning bolts circled around Brother Thunder. He was like a self-propelled explosive weapon. Wherever he went, the battlefield would explode. I saw a portion of it. However, I'm still not very clear about what the black fog is for. Hui smiled bitterly and told him the other portion of the black fog. Then, a large wave of painful wails came from the soul transmission. That's against the rules. Sui Feng's face darkened. Doesn't that mean that the part that was killed by the side doesn't count? That part of the manifestation can only be completely destroyed by a direct attack of energy? Isn't that bullsh asterisk T? Which guy has so much free time to do such a large-scale attack? Hui was silent for a moment. The guy you're talking about who has nothing to do is now lying in the Origin Temple. Sui Feng, Brother Feng? Then it's fine. Everyone did not know whether to laugh or cry. There was a high-level premier guarding the Great Rift. It was not realistic to fight at the enemy's doorstep. The high-level premier was also using his own power and methods to command these dumb things to attack the realm of order. During the battle, they could clearly feel that the power of these things was several times stronger than before. Fortunately, Feng's realm had taken shape. At this moment, it was affecting the entire battlefield through the nodes covering the void frontline, weakening the power of chaos. After a while, the power of the manifestations and constructs was only strengthened by a little. The impact was not very big. The biggest impact was that they had an extra brain, a brain that stood at the rear and fought against them vigorously. From the looks of it, Node 0 should be facing the strongest impact on the Void frontline. Hui analyzed from the gathered information that the enemy they were facing at this moment, be it in terms of quality or quantity, was much more exaggerated than the other places in the Void frontline. As a result, they had even mobilized some of the node's power to gather at Node 0. Master Hui, that group of constructs with origin power is coming again. Hui hurriedly turned his gaze when he heard the urgent report from one of the Order Warriors. That group of special chaos constructs was coming over in a grandiose manner. Furthermore, there were countless manifestations and ordinary chaos constructs following behind them. They were just like an army. Divert half of the energy tower's energy. Wait for them to come closer before attacking. The rest of the energy towers continue to clear out the surrounding manifestations. As for the empty defensive line, I'll fill in, Brother Lei shouted, taking over Huey's words. With a flash, he arrived at the empty gap covered by the energy tower's firepower. The surface of the sun that was formed from billions of thunderbolts began to churn like waves of thunder. The various destructive energies hidden beneath were lifted to the surface. The origin power also began to churn, adding a hint of sacred golden light to the silver sun. Moments later, the sun violently erupted with a new energy star. Indescribable destructive energies turned into a lightning dragon that engulfed the entire void. Lightning flashed, and countless manifestations were reduced to energy and completely dissipated. All the operating energy towers in the Order domain had been overloaded for an unknown period of time. The destroyed energy towers were also replaced in batches. The replaced energy towers were treated as disposable bombs and tossed to the reconstructed backup echelons. This was to allow these useless and broken energy towers to be put to good use in their hands. The more they could get rid of, the better. The deep and dark void had been lit up by the endless energy. That group of special black constructs and magic circles were in place one by one. The vast light of energy illuminated the void around them. Small scarlet void rifts appeared out of thin air. A large number of black abyssal death mist manifestations and small chaos constructs gushed out from the rifts under the cover of their huge size and energy radiance. With the goal of destruction and protection, they launched an attack on the realm of order. The abyssal death mist manifestations and chaos energies were rapidly approaching the realm of order. The abyssal death mist manifestations and chaos energies were like a torrential downpour as they fell on the realm of order. In an instant, a large number of golden ripples appeared. Because the ripples were too dense, it even caused one's line of sight to turn gray. You want to tear down the realm of order? Why don't you ask for my permission first? He stomped his foot fiercely. The Guardian's shield held up a defensive barrier that withstood the small attacks that were like a torrential downpour. The Guardian's greatsword pierced into the colorful energy tower beside him. The energy crystal on the top of the energy tower rapidly turned from gray to colorful. The overflowing energy turned into a dazzling light that soared into the sky. Go, accompany your comrades in death. The most unique energy tower took less than 10 seconds to recharge. Then, it erupted with a mighty energy torrent that covered the entire battlefield. The army of constructs that ran across the long distance of the void to the front of the realm of order. But before they could unleash a chaos strike, they were vaporized into green smoke and dissipated into nothingness. The fused origin energy is indeed a big problem. There is no particularly good way to deal with it. A roar came from the Scarlet Rift. He watched as the army of constructs was wiped out. The dazzling energy torrent passed by from the far right side of the rift with a loud noise. He was silent for a moment. That energy could directly threaten a mid-tier premier. To deal with a high-tier premier, it would take a longer time to prepare. In short, it was unreasonable. The problem was that he could not calculate the time. He heard that the 3 guys who were already dead were bombarded in less than a minute after they rushed out. Now, they had gone to the road of reincarnation to report. Apart from the energy torrent mixed with the origin energy, the rampaging of the inheritors had also brought him a lot of trouble. Most of the constructs were killed by them. Looking at them now, it seemed that they had not fully unleashed their power. Except for the guy who was shouting Silver Dragon, in the void, the other inheritors had not unleashed their origin energy. It was difficult to deal with them. Phew, forget it. Let's take it slow. After thinking for a moment, he sighed and shook his head. His gaze swept across the battlefield and fell on the black smoke that was left in the void. He was silent. The rift let out a dull roar again. It's about time. Anyway, let's give it a try. It's a new power. We have to try it. He waved his hand and sucked in a cold breath. Every time he used the origin energy crystal tower, his hand felt like it was going to be crippled. The principle of the tower was simple. Use ordinary energy to stimulate the energy crystals in the energy tower and convert them into origin energy without any restrictions. That was all. It was simple, convenient, and fast. It was just a little taxing. Personally mobilizing the origin energy, just touching one type was already quite taxing. At this moment, he was controlling about 147 types of origin energy at once. This won't do. Next time, I have to find someone else to fire the cannon. My hand will be crippled after 2 more shots. His gaze towards the void gradually became a little gloomy. In the past, when he fought in the void, he felt that time passed very quickly. Perhaps it was because he was dealing with a bunch of brainless war puppets. But that was the situation of the past. Now, the army of manifestations and constructs welcomed a powerful brain. The high-tier premier himself was quite a good commander. Ordinary tactics could be used in this place that was full of destruction, and the battlefield was almost infinite. Some small tactics could be used to make the war puppets more powerful, tenacious, and capable of fighting. But if the forces are concentrated, it's easy to destroy them. After all, the range of our cannon is big enough. If they dare to come together, then they won't be able to return alive. First, more than half of the Void's frontline forces were mobilized to kill the 3 high-tier premierships. Then, they had to deal with a high-tier premier who suddenly barged into the battle. It was more or less a little flustered, but that was just the beginning. Now, they had more or less regained their footing. To be fair, if the situation continued to develop like this, the situation would be stabilized in a few hours and enter a rather long cycle. Almost, woo! The grand horn sounded once again in the void, causing Hui and the others' expressions to change drastically. They were sweating profusely. Now, the only thing they needed to be wary of was the power of origin in the other party's hands, especially that horn. The moment it was blown, it had caused the manifestations and constructs to go berserk. This time, the sound of the bugle horn was even more hurried than the first one. The heavy pressure was like a violent storm slapping on one's face, making one feel suffocated and flustered. This didn't seem to affect the entire void, but only the area in front of them. Master Hui. This is the energy reaction of the mixed order, but it's rather weak. It seems like there's only a little mixed in it. F***CK. Since when did the mixed order become so simple? Hui cursed as he took out his great sword and shield and looked at the big crack. At this moment, there was not much difference between the manifestation and the structure. They were still gushing out of the big crack like the tide and charging towards the realm of order without fear of death. However, when that energy came out, he felt that something was slowly changing. Withdraw the battle line and lean back a little. God knows what that guy is going to do. Hui shouted as he banged on his shield. I know. I seem to remember that this should be the second function of the Horn of Order. Sui Feng quickly squeezed into the soul communication and shouted, causing everyone to be stunned. What's the second function? Why haven't I heard of it before? Brother Lei scratched his head. Because it was our teacher who gave the Horn of Order to the underworld. I still remember. Sui Feng grinned. I still remember. This second function is what is it again? Everyone was speechless. Sui Feng's face darkened. They could foresee that this kid would not be able to keep his life when he returned to the realm of order. No matter what, let's blast it first. Billions of streams of order energy shone like the stars in the sky as they surged across the void towards the big crack. But there was a high-tier primeval guarding the crack. If they did not use their extraordinary power, they could not do anything to it. Now, they could not even interrupt the horn. The only thing they were sure of was that the second function of the horn was not for them. Then, it should be a different kind of strengthening. Let's gather power first and clear out the manifestations and constructs nearby. Let's see what he's going to do. Sui Feng, have you thought of it? I'm thinking. Sui Feng's forehead was covered in sweat. I remember it very clearly, but suddenly, I can't remember in a moment of panic. I remember now. That's to restore the power of our own people. Everyone was stunned. Restore power? Only a few of the cannon fodders were left after a wave of energy. How could they restore power? What could they restore? Hui was stunned for a few seconds before he suddenly thought of something. He quickly shouted, "Gather the energy of the energy towers and aim at the smoke floating in the void. Shoot them down. Quick!" Suddenly, a dense abyssal death mist gushed out from the rift. Dozens of scarlet energy arrays suddenly emerged from the space around the rift. Each array condensed an extremely dazzling light, and all the energy was concentrated in the center of the rift. Then they turned into a ring of energy and suddenly exploded, just as we pressed down on the energy pagoda and was about to clear the black fog that filled the entire void. A nightmare suddenly descended. After the energy halo exploded, a strange energy suddenly spread to all parts of the void. When it came into contact with the black fog that filled the ground, the remaining energy that was only a few feet in size forcefully plundered the energy of the void in a short 2 seconds and recovered into a huge manifestation or a huge chaotic construct. Wherever the energy halo touched, the boundless black fog once again turned into manifestations and structures all over the place, filling up the entire space before him. It's really restored? Just a strand of energy can restore it to its original state? Hui was so anxious that he almost jumped. The ring of energy explosion just now had increased the number of manifestations and constructs on the battlefield by at least 10 million times. All energy towers, prepare to continue overloading. Brothers of the backup echelon, prepare to bring up the big yield. Prepare to clear out the battlefield at our doorstep. Oh ho! Come, Sway Phone, come here. I'll beat you to death. You can't blame me for this? It's true. I just remembered. Sway Feng's face was sweating profusely as he smiled bitterly. He really couldn't shake off this blame. If he had remembered it a minute earlier, they would have been able to get rid of a lot of the remaining black smoke. It's fine. Once it revives, we can just kill it again. After all, the number of manifestations we've defeated is enough to flood an entire region of the void. A sound that sounded like the resonance of multiple energies quietly rang out, accompanied by a slight tremor in the void. After the sound rang out, a vast expanse of dazzling energy arrays sprung up in the void ahead like bamboo shoots after a rain. In an instant, they filled the entire field of vision. Before the people arrived, the arrays arrived first. We clapped his hands calmly. He's awake? Then it's fine. We'll just have to fight again. But why did he wake up so quickly this time? Everyone smiled bitterly. You weren't so calm just now. However, the scene of fireworks exploding in front of them was indeed too magnificent and too shocking. Tisk, you've just arrived, so you wouldn't understand. Let me tell you. Look at the scene in front of you. Hui smiled faintly and spread his arms. He looked at the scene in front of him that resembled a downpour. Every raindrop was a circle, and countless circles appeared majestically. Maple's power is enough to scatter the light of truth of order all over the void. This is the truth of the world of order. Amaba, everyone. Chapter 1743. Those gigantic magic circles smashed into the void as if they were free of charge. There was not a single empty spot in the void as far as the eye could see. The void was filled with magic circles and manifestations. Compared to the two, the latter was more numerous and unreasonable. However, the impact of the former was more powerful. The two things appeared in the void at the same time, and the latter was faster. However, the more magic circles they saw, the calmer they became. Let's put it this way, the colorful magic circles. Once 10,000 of them were activated at the same time, the void in front of them would be restored to its original state. As the largest and most violent killing machine in the world of order, its power was no joke. They wondered how the high-level premier would feel when he saw it. But what made we feel a little strange was that it had not even been a day since Maple finished the void collapse. Although he had the support of the realm of order this time, and it was not as dangerous as the lesser void turbulence. The price of breaking the defense of 3 high-level primeval was not something that could be recovered from by lying down for a day and a half. At that time, Maple's body was full of cracks, and he was about to shatter on the spot. I was awakened by the sound of the horn. Maple's figure slowly appeared in front of them. He no longer looked as broken as before. He seemed to be in good condition. Well, actually, just by looking at the magic circles in front of them, they could tell that he was in good condition. It was just that the way he woke up seemed to be a little beyond their imagination. You woke up. We looked at him from head to toe and could not help but ponder. I have never seen a guy who can still jump around after being seriously injured. I'm afraid you yin-washing. Oh, that horn woke me up, but it also healed my injuries at the same time. Although I haven't recovered to 100%, it's enough. The rest can be slowly recovered. Interesting. Who blew this horn? Everyone who was nervously preparing their power to cooperate with him was stunned. Hui stared at him, raised his hand, and pointed to the other side. He said dryly, "That horn was blown by the other side." "Oh, then it's even more interesting, isn't it?" Yin-washing couldn't help but burst out laughing. Brother Lei and the others looked at Feng and then turned to Sui Feng. Sui Feng forced a smile and scratched his head. It's probably because the Horn of Order has been tainted by the presence of chaos. The presence of chaos has changed the nature of the Horn of Order. Life forms of order like us won't be affected by it, but life forms of chaos will be affected. Brother Feng, you're both, so you're affected together. Everyone looked up and was silent. So, the void was really interesting. They wondered what the expression of the high-level primeval opposite them would be if he knew that he had woken up the person with the horn. They pondered for a moment. If they were in the same situation, they would have found a hole to bury themselves in the void. They would be too ashamed to face the people of the chaotic void. In fact, the energy vibrations in the big crack suddenly froze. The high-level primeval inside was so stunned that he forgot to blow the horn. After a long silence, he squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. How did that guy get up so quickly? Damn, it seems that I have to keep a low profile. Damn, I'd better change my position. I don't want him to know that I'm here. He looked at the sea of light in front of him that was like a sea of light that was constantly expanding. The number and power of the array were constantly increasing, and he felt that his soul was trembling. Even though he had moved to a bigger crack, he could still see the sea of light that was constantly expanding after retreating a long distance. His mentality was a little unhealthy. No way, no way. Hurry up and get those bastards to come over and help. This guy who doesn't care about his life has the primal chaos, light of origin, and the primal chaos, origin energy. If he uses all his strength, he could destroy half of the underworld. I can't handle him alone. A series of violent movements that seemed to be able to turn the entire void and nothingness upside down came from all directions. As soon as he steadied himself, he felt an indescribable destructive movement coming from the entire void. He looked outside the big crack and saw that the sea of light from the magic formation was already spewing out energy, and 1/10 of the energy landed outside the big crack where he was hiding. It was probably just an accident, but it was enough to make the whole crack creak and tremble. 1/3 of the hundreds of big cracks were destroyed by the high-energy attack that covered the void. The crack where he was hiding dimmed by half because of the attack. When the void quieted down a little, he looked outside again. The void was really clean. There was not even a speck of dust left for him. The horn that he blew with all his might was equivalent to farting in the void. His mentality, which was already not good, was about to crack. Maybe I should gather some more power. What's wrong with that guy? He's only at the peak of origin. Won't you be invincible if you reach Yuan-Shi? He sucked in a breath of cold air until his teeth hurt, pacing back and forth in the rift. He gritted his teeth and nodded fiercely. Then, he turned around and threw an energy message into the depths of the rift. The situation is critical. Send 2 protectors to help me. The boundless void was only left with remnant energy. There were still many places where the remnant energy was too large and too high-grade, so it couldn't be devoured by the void in a single breath. During the slow devouring process, countless energy anomalies were released and floated in the void, speeding up their annihilation. The billions of formations hanging in front of the domain of order couldn't find any trace of the enemy, so they gradually retracted their formation and slowly condensed their energy. They stopped. So many manifestations and structures in front of us are all gone. Sui Feng gestured at the void in front of him with his hands. They're gone for now. I don't know why they suddenly stopped attacking, but we can finally take a break. Since we killed the 3 high-level Yuan-Shi, we haven't had the chance to properly reorganize. Now is the time to recover the power of the realm of order. Hui shouted at the people in the realm of order. Yun Nuoxing stared at the void in the distance. She suddenly turned her head and said, "World of order. How's the arrangement at the front line? Origin energy, Yuan-Shi realm. Have they been discussed?" "Not yet. Feng, your realm of order has only been completed for less than a day. Since the 3 high-level Yuan-Shi broke out, we haven't had any time to rest. We don't have time to arrange anything." Hui glanced at the void in the distance with the corner of his eyes. He rolled his eyes and said, "Do you have any ideas? Let's hear it." Yin Nuoxing turned her head and nodded at him. Node 0. All the peak origin cultivators who have completed their divinity carriers should go and break through immediately. Node cities, origin temple, observer dimension, you can go anywhere you like. The warriors of the realm of gods have been preparing for a long time. If necessary, you can go back to the realm of gods to break through faster. Hui quickly waved his hand and said, No, no, no. The defense of Nodzero, I'll hold on. Yin Nuoxing turned her head and stared at the void in the distance. Her deep eyes seemed to be able to see into the underworld. If you need 100 years, I'll hold on for 100 years. If you need 10,000 years, I'll hold on for 10,000 years. This directly spread through the realm of order, startling everyone. They looked at each other and remained silent. They lowered their heads and tidied up the realm of order. If all the peak reciprocity cultivators who were about to break through were taken away, the realm of order would lose around half of its population. It was no longer the same as when the front line had just been established. They had many peak reciprocity cultivators now. If all the peak reciprocity cultivators left, less than a third of the realm of order would be left. No matter how long it takes, I can easily buy you this time. Moreover, I'm not the only one in Node 0. Yin Nuoxing turned around and looked at everyone. The colors in her eyes surged gently. Go. For the distant future, we need to take a gamble. Your strength is indispensable. Everyone looked at each other with complicated expressions. After a long silence, half of the people knelt on one knee and clasped their hands. A loud shout shook the void. Yes, God. Watching this group of people disappear on the spot, Yin Nuoxing tilted her head and continued to say to Hui, Let everyone in the realm of gods of the front line break through first. This time, 70 to 80% of the origin cultivators in the realm of gods should be able to break through to the realm of primeval. How can it be so fast? Hui smiled bitterly. 100 billion years of preparation, 100 billion years of preparation, plus 100 billion years of harvest from fighting the underworld here. Even so, only more than half of the peak origin cultivators in the realm of gods were ready to break through to the realm of primeval. However, their path was blocked by the tide of chaos. The remaining half were younger than the others who had been at the peak of origin. It was up to them to say whether they were ready or not. However, they could indeed break through to the realm of primeval. There was also a portion of them who were even younger. Those who had just reached the peak and were still in a sealed state could only wait slowly. Hearing Huey's words, Yin Nuoxing was silent for a while. Then we can only wait. How long will it take for you to deal with the origin energy in the front line? She then turned to look at Brother Lei and the others. Don't worry, we have already arranged for people to deal with it before we came out. Brother Lei spread his hands. However, there are more frontline worlds. It will take some time to use the world barrier to contact the world barrier and let the origin energy spread quickly. However, in less than a year, not only the frontline worlds, but even the void frontline will be covered with suitable origin energy. Then, it'll be a long time to adapt. Sui Feng turned to look at the frontline worlds in the distance. Fortunately, the world core of the frontline worlds is somewhat related to the origin energy. Almost half of the law creations in the void frontline are linked to the origin energy and the origin law. Many people here have already adapted to the origin energy, but it will take some time to get on the right track. Hundreds of billions of years. Hui and Yin Nuoxing were speechless. When the origin energy is ready for everyone to use, it will take another few trillion years. In other words, after this period of time, the combat power of the void frontline will usher in a huge leap. Hui was speechless again. Well, it was the origin energy after all. Even if it was a weakened version, ordinary beings of order would not be able to adapt to it easily. It was normal to take some time. After all, it was only a few trillion years, not a few eras. Feng, what's the plan you mentioned just now? Hui asked through the soul transmission. He hadn't forgotten that Maple had mentioned a vague plan about the distant future. That's right, just based on the telepathy between the two of them. Tui, tacit understanding, he didn't need to think to know that Maple was planning something that wasn't very positive. Yin Nuoxing paused for a moment before turning to look at him. She slowly said, Hui, if I give you 6 eras, can you become a high-level premier? Hui was speechless. Yin Nuashing did not stop. She turned to look at Sui Feng and Sui Feng. What about you? In 6 eras, using all methods and unscrupulous means, can you become a high-level premier? The many heirs were stunned and looked at each other. This was a slightly difficult question. They had not thought about this part of the problem in detail. Brother Lei stepped forward and replied on behalf of the others. It should be not possible, because of the void law. That's right. It's already difficult for the laws of the void to give birth to someone at the primeval realm. It'll be very difficult to advance further, even if we have Her Eminence's power. Brother Lei nodded with a sigh. But Huey's level has improved before. Yin Nuashing waved her hand and pointed at Hui. This, I can't say for sure. There could be 2 possibilities. First, Hui Jun is the heavenly god of primordial beginning in this era. So even if the strength of the laws and order is weak, she can still increase her level. After all, the heavenly god of primordial beginning is not bound by the void, so she can increase her level. This is the theory that teacher told us before, but no one has studied it. After all, the void back then did not have such conditions. Second, Hui Jun has not reached that level yet, so she can still increase her level. Yin Nuashing pondered the meaning of this sentence and said, on the other hand, you all broke through in the previous era. Even if you escape the influence of the tide of chaos, you are more or less limited by that era. If you want to break through again, you need to get rid of some of the shackles. Or maybe you are stuck at this stage because the strength of the laws and order of the void is not strong enough. Brother Lei grinned and nodded. He did not need to finish his sentence when talking to Brother Feng. Brother Feng could understand by himself. So the result is, Yin Nuashing murmured. She tilted her head and saw Hui slowly raise his hand. Hui? Well, although I don't know what's going on. Hui raised his hand and laughed dryly. But I feel that I can slowly break through. But it may take a long time. Did your intuition capture the limit? Brother Lei waved his hand. No, I try to explore higher realms. So far, I have not found the existence of the barrier. Maybe. Hui scratched his head. Seeing Feng's thoughtful look, he quickly waved his hand. But to reach the high-level premier in 6 eras, I think it's not very possible. So don't have too much hope. I'll try my best to go in that direction. After saying that, he smiled bitterly. Maple is really difficult. This is not the previous era. The destruction and loss of all kinds of conditions and environments made the road to the Yuanshu realm difficult. Under such difficult conditions, he still had to run quickly on this bumpy road and not fall flat on his face or be covered in mud. It is really difficult for him. Sui Qing's gaze fell on Yin Nuashing. She saw that he lowered his head and muttered to himself. Sometimes he looked up at the void and then looked down at his hands. He seemed to be deducing something. Combined with what he just said about the high-level premier, she seemed to be able to think of something. You want to attack the underworld? The group of people who were thinking about why it took 6 years and how to reach the higher level of the premier all popped out their eyes and looked at Yin Nuashing with a weird expression. When they saw Yin Nuashing and Sui Qing slowly nodding at each other, they felt that it was reasonable. To end this war and win, they had to attack. Even if the other side could not break in, they could not let the underworld go unscathed. Defense would never hurt the enemy. In the end, it would only send oneself to reincarnation. A certain origin sky god said in the 30th era. Therefore, it wasn't that they couldn't understand Maple's thoughts. If they really wanted the world of order to win this long battle, they would need to go all out in an attack. It's still far away for us now. Without a high-level premier, this idea is just empty talk. If there is a high-level premier, we can bring the origin energy and the land of origin into the underworld. We have a chance of winning. However, Yin Nuashing stopped stroking his arm and sighed to the void. However, we still have time. While they are waiting for time to pass, we are also bidding farewell to the time that is slowly passing. If we're talking about the necessary conditions, it's not impossible to gather them. Yin Nuashing turned around and looked at Brother Lei and the others. Under their horrified gazes, he dug his claw into his own heart. Ouch! Sui Feng covered his chest with a ferocious face. Pain! Phantom pain! Huey's face was calm. He was very calm. He slowly took out the world core of the origin continent from the light in his heart. Then he slowly took out the model of the land of origin that had been stored in his soul. The two merged into one, forming a world that floated in his palm. Yin Nuashing let out a long breath and handed it forward to Brother Lei. The conditions left by the origin sky god, along with the laws and order of that ancient era, as well as 196 types of origin energy. Perhaps this is the best condition for you. Brother Lei looked at the ball of light in his hand with a toothache. Although he was not clear about the connection between the inheritor of destruction and the ball of light, if he were to pull it out rashly, it would definitely. Anyway, it would hurt him to look at it. Moreover, it would definitely affect him. This, just as Brother Lei was about to speak, Sui Qing stepped forward and reached out to press on the ball of light. With a gentle push, she stuffed it back into Yin Nuashing's chest. The latter was stunned. He tilted his head and looked at her in confusion. The impact would be too great for you. Sui Qing shook her head and looked up slightly to meet his eyes. Then she spoke seriously, 10 million years. If we still can't find a way after 10 million years, then we would ask you to help us, who are foolish. Her deep blue eyes and the white light that flickered like the stars in the galaxy. Yin Nuashing did not see any signs of joking or hesitation, nor was she being stubborn. After thinking for a while, she nodded. That's fine. I'll listen to you and wait 10 million years. Then, we'll see what's going on. Sui Qing nodded and smiled faintly. That's fine. She believed that they could find a way to break free of their shackles in 10 million years. If they were trapped in the ancient era and could not move forward because of their own reasons, and had to be injured in order for them to break free, it would be an unerasable shame for herself and the title of inheritor. There was a slight roar of energy in the void. Everyone looked up and saw that the void that had stopped for a long time was quickly gathering energy again. The big crack trembled, and enemies surged out from it like a tide. They were even crazier than before. In the big scarlet crack in the distance, there seemed to be one or two highly threatening life forces. Perhaps they were waiting for reinforcements. Perhaps this was the reason why they suddenly stopped attacking. Two more guys came. Two mid-tier yuan-shi. They're very close to the higher tier. Brother Lei muttered and scratched his head. What a headache. Even if we want to attack the underworld, we still need to reach the higher tier of yuan-shi. Looking at the void, Yin Nuashing caught a glimpse of scarlet that slowly appeared. She let out a long sigh and slowly floated out from the realm of order. The first light and the origin energy appeared on her body at the same time, responding to the roar of energy. Whether it was the path to the world of order, the predicament that the void had to face, or everything that he had to face because of his crazy obsession, they were all in front of him at this moment. Perhaps there were still some shadows and fog that had not been brushed away. However, it was no longer important. All of his thoughts and ideas had cut off all the branches of his thoughts. What was left was only a path that intersected and collided in the void. It's all for the sake of survival. Floating in the general trend of the void. That's right. That's the path that we have chosen. It's the opposite of your path. It's an entanglement that can never be solved. Chapter 1744. Time. It had been too long. Even they could not remember how much time had passed. Day after day of slaughter and battle. Day after day of watching the void crumble and return to its original state. They were numb. They were completely numb. Everyone who stayed in the void had long become emotionless war machines. Apart from pouring energy into the void and thinking about who am I, where am I, what am I doing for 2 seconds before waiting for time to pass again, there was perhaps no other change. Well, that was not entirely the case. After all, combat still required energy and a bit of brain power. However, after repeating one set of attacks for so long without any change, one would eventually become numb to it. One would habitually unleash one's own moves, habitually unleashing tons of energy forward, or simply pressing on an energy tower to unleash a torrent of energy into the void without aiming. Regardless of where the attack was aimed, it would definitely hit the target, and the number would definitely not be small. Regardless of how one fought, it seemed to have become a fact that would never change. Yuan Kong breathed a sigh of relief and closed her little notebook. It was only when she was heavily injured or exhausted that she would have the time to retreat into the realm of order and write a few short words in the countless notebooks that she had replaced to record the time that had passed. Well, she had almost wanted to use energy orbs to record such information recently. After all, the notebooks that she had replaced weighed hundreds of tons, and those hundreds of tons were the weight of the time that they had passed, the heavy time that they had spent fighting endlessly in the void frontline. Time, Yuan Kong muttered as she took out an energy orb that was inscribed with the rules of time in the Grand Yuan realm. Taking a look inside, she muttered to herself for a moment before opening the notebook again and recording the current time on the top of the last page. 55 eras and 10 million years. It's almost 4 eras. After writing this time, Yuan Kong only reacted in hindsight. The pen in her hand trembled slightly as she looked up at the void outside the realm of order. The first light hung high in the void, and he had turned into an indestructible star that hung there forever. Forever. These 4 eras had never stopped for a single day, and the billions of magic arrays had never dimmed or faded away. However, the people in the void frontline had been going back and forth, dying and reviving, stopping, or breaking through realms in a hurry. Tiny events, in reality, washed back and forth around him like a torrent. Only he alone hung there forever, becoming an indestructible ray of light in the void. The vast aura of origin and the energy of the primeval realm reverberated back and forth in the void. There were energies from them, and also from the people and monsters on the other side. That's right, it had been 4 eras. The void of order was no longer weak and could only rely on him to bear the pressure of the entire frontline. In the past 4 eras, many beings of order had entered the primeval realm in this reopened environment. The number was huge. Oh, speaking of this, the third person to enter the primeval realm in the world of order was still Jing Jiejie. Even though it happened to be the time when the laws and order were liberated and many people entered the primeval realm at the same time, they were not faster than Jing Jiejie. After that, among the first batch of primeval realm cultivators, a considerable portion of them were from the celestial realm, such as Monarch Green. Speaking of Monarch Green, because the place he guarded had always been on the other side of the void, his unruly voice could only be heard in the daily reports. It was said that after he entered the primeval realm, he was so energetic that it was as if he was possessed by a big idiot. He rushed to the side of the big crack in the abyss of death fog and crushed hundreds of fledglings and dozens of beginner primeval from the underworld to death in the void. In the end, a mid-level primeval rushed out to cause trouble and threw him back into the realm of order. However, it was said that before he was thrown back, he gathered the power of the realm of order and destroyed half of the soul of that mid-level primeval. As for the situation at the front line, Yuan Kong's gaze swept around. Endless energy was fighting, colliding, and an indescribable energy was violently intertwining, disintegrating, and destroying in the void. Both sides did not give in. Both sides were deadlocked in a domain in the void, and it was difficult for the other side to compromise or give in. Has the power of the manifestation and structure become stronger? Yuan Kong muttered to himself. It seems that it hasn't been long since they collectively sublimated into the primeval realm. Why did they undergo another change so quickly? Therefore, even if the power of the realm of order had increased a lot, even if the realm of order had its own primeval realm, they were still deadlocked in the void. In these 4 eras, they were not the only ones who had changed. The underworld was also trying to find ways to strengthen their power in the battle. Neither side gave in and used all means to press the other side into the void and beat them up. However, the one who had changed more was the realm of order. After all, the high-level primeval of the underworld had not changed since he appeared and hung in the big fissure. Even when he was killed by the big idiot's void collapse in the big fissure and rushed out to fight the realm of order, his presence had not changed. Perhaps it was difficult for the underworld to make their own people more powerful. That time, both of them had suffered heavy injuries. He already had the order realm of the primeval stage, and with the support of the big idiot's various supportive powers, he had fought with him head-on. Both of them had suffered heavy injuries, and he had almost left the two mid-level primeval stage cultivators who had followed him to void. Her hand that was flipping through the small book paused for a moment. Yuan Kong let out a sigh. Unknowingly, I thought of the past. For eras, such a long time. For eras had passed, and there was still no high-level primeval in the front line of the void. Brother Lei, Sui Qing, and the others had searched for a long time and finally found the effect that allowed them to break free from the weak suppression of the realm of order and law of the previous era. Although their combat power had improved during this period, they were still far from reaching the level of a high-level primeval. The plan of the big idiot had been in the preparation stage, even though he had personally prepared for 4 years. Yuan Kong looked at Mu Kong from afar, and her gaze paused on the initial light. She thought for a moment and walked towards the initial light. Her body flashed twice as she walked into the area covered by the light. The sacred and vast light was mixed with the extremely pure aura of order and extremely pure aura of chaos. Although it was the aura of two types of order, it made her feel a little relieved. She found that lone figure in the first light and thought for a moment before slowly walking towards him. Her consciousness filled the entire domain of light. She knew that he already knew that she was approaching him, and because of that, he had diverted his attention slightly. What's wrong? Just as she walked to the side of the big idiot, she heard an ethereal voice that resonated with the void. Yuan Kong looked up at him for a moment, and then tilted her head to follow his gaze. It was the place where the high-level primeval of the underworld was guarding. His gaze had never left the high-level primeval for 4 eras without relaxing. I'm a little confused, so I came to have a look. Yuan Kong sat down at his feet and sighed. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm used to raising my hand, used to wiping out everything that comes at me, used to pouring my power, used to letting everything get used to it. As a result, it's a little ridiculous. I can't even understand what we're doing now. So, I came to find you. Has your spirit reached its limit? Yin Nuoxing looked ahead and replied softly. Maybe. Yuan Kong hugged his knees and buried his face in his arms in silence. Anyone who had fought in this hellish place for 4 eras would be at a loss. From the first 1 year, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10 million years, to the first 100 million years, followed by 1 billion years, 100 billion years, 10 million years, and finally, an era had passed, and everything had become silent and numb. In the first 1,000 years, one would feel that 100 years was nothing more than that, and it would pass in a few moments. The first 10 million years would feel that 1,000,000 years was nothing more than that, and it would pass in a few moments. It was nothing more than a small thread in the course of time. And then 4 eras had passed, and it was no longer a thread. Big idiot, where are we now? Yuan Kong asked in a muffled voice. We're still at the edge of the upper plane. Yin Nuoxing's gaze that was fixed on the high-tier premier finally moved away for once. He looked at the void in other places and turned to look at it for a few seconds before returning his gaze to the Great Rift. The void seal has not moved after that great shift. It's still a long way from the 3rd defense line. But once we reach the 3rd defense line, Yuan Kong suddenly looked up at the side of Hao Ren's face and muttered in a muffled voice, Is Yin Nuoxing remained silent and nodded. They were retreating as if they had returned to the initial phase of the battle. The void front line would be forced to retreat every once in a while due to the pressure that kept accumulating. Although they had really retreated, the 2nd defense line did not collapse. It was a decision he made 3 years ago when the underworld risked their lives to launch a surprise attack. Before that, he had spent a lot of effort to loosen the 2nd defense line in the void so that it could move along with the void seal. As for the surprise attack that forced the 2nd defense line to retreat, in a nutshell, 20 high-tier premier and more than 1,000 mid-tier premier fledglings besieged the Void frontline. As for the manifestations and constructs, those were conventional units that did not need to be recorded. Even if they were recorded, there would not be an accurate number. It was a fierce attack, and the battle was quick. It ended in just 3 days, and both sides had paid a heavy price. On the underworld side, more than 1,000 fledglings were wiped out. Only 7 of the 20 high-tier premier were left, and they ran back in a state of death. They were infected by the rupturing energy of the original light, and it was not known whether they were dead or alive. At first, it sounded like a great victory, and the results were amazing. But if you think about it from another perspective, knowing that all the spiritual temples on the Void frontline were full, perhaps it was not that surprising. Howard still remembered that it was Yuan Kong who was in charge of the post-event report. He remembered that after the surprise attack, the little girl had written a sentence in her mysterious little notebook. Average number of deaths of Order warriors, +1. What she meant was that in those 3 days at the Void frontline, everyone died once, and they were wiped out. In that battle, almost all of them, including the top forces, had fallen. Except for a few who did not dare to die, because they had to withstand the Void frontline when everyone was not there. The Void blockade was also retreating again and again, retreating from the upper and middle realms to their current position in just 3 days. The underworld had also been in hot pursuit, determined to destroy the entire Void frontline in one go. In the end, they were injured, and the Void frontline was broken to the point of collapse. The Void blockade was riddled with holes, and it took a lot of time to repair it. For the next 2 eras, there were no more battles of this scale. Perhaps they were afraid that the power of the world of order had slightly taken shape, and they knew that after that battle, they would not be able to easily wipe out the front line of the Void. Thus, they slightly restrained their evil intentions. Perhaps they were still busy with their own matters, or perhaps, God knows why. Phone. Another voice rang from the screen of the first light. The battle that kept replaying in Yun Nuoxing's mind quietly dissipated. She turned her head together with Yuan Kong. Hui, who was bathed in blood, slowly landed on the screen, panting heavily. Yun Nuoxing turned her attention slightly and said flatly, "What's wrong with you guys? Why are you so free to come here today?" Hui smiled bitterly and shook his head. He threw away the shield and sword in his hand and slumped in the screen. "What free time? Phew, I've been beaten back. I need to rest for a while. I almost sent myself back into the spiritual temple again. Jing Yun, that bastard, can't take it easy. She got herself into trouble again." Yin Nuoxing had a calm expression. This is a common thing. After retreating to the upper plane, they would be killed by the other side for no reason, dying in the spiritual temple and waiting to be revived. After all, the underworld would also throw out a group of deadly things for no reason. Perhaps it was a mid-level primeval fledgling or a primal chaos construct with a mid-level primeval fledgling as its core. Perhaps it was something deadly, such as Yin Nuoxing looked up and looked at the side of the large fissure. There were a lot of black, twisted constructs that looked like melted and mixed things piled up there, releasing scarlet light in the void. In the scene of bursting energy light in the void, the light of the twisted mixture was dimmer and harder to find, but their attention never left it. Sanctum of spawning. Just as they had guessed, the consciousness of the abyssal death shroud created by the sanctum of spawning was used to create a primeval spawn with consciousness, which was equivalent to a primeval being born quickly. Those things had not reached the stage where they could be mass-produced, but it was enough to affect them greatly. Fortunately, the newborn consciousness of the abyssal death shroud was relatively newborn, young. They were formed under their forced distortion and consciousness modification, and the primeval beings that were born quickly were too young compared to the old primeval beings that had lived for who knows how many years. They possessed the true power of a primeval, but could not fully unleash it, but that level was enough to cause some damage to the void frontlines. The sanctum of evolutions beside the crack was only one of them. They did not forget the scene they saw on the lower plane. Sanctums of evolutions filled the void. The battle situation seems to have stabilized at this stage for now, right? Hui sat paralyzed in the light screen, looking at the void in the distance. His gaze locked onto an area that was surrounded by countless silver thunderbolts, and he grinned. Yin Nuoxing glanced at him. You said that an era ago. Hui smiled bitterly. They had been in this state all along. They had been in the state of seemingly stabilizing, but every time this happened, the underworld would throw out a large number of things to interrupt their seemingly stabilizing state, and then they would enter another small-scale chaos. But it was actually not a big deal, as Feng Hongjiu was here. He knew this sentence was a bit of a jerk, but it was true that he had been hanging here to shine on the void, and the situation in the void front line had been stable. This situation could not be changed even if there were many more primeval gods in the void front line. The meaning of Feng Hongjiu hanging here at this moment was that he himself was the most powerful killing weapon, and he needed to stay here to monitor the underworld, in case the high-level primeval hiding in the Big Crack suddenly rushed into the battlefield and started a massacre. This was a kind of tacit understanding between him and Feng Hongjiu. They both knew where they needed to stay and knew each other's weight. Therefore, this was also a contest and war between the two of them, which had not ended even after 4 years. How is the situation in the frontline world now? The origin energy has completely covered the frontline world and the void frontline, and is still gradually increasing the concentration of the origin energy. The next change in the void frontline may take more time. How about the frontline world? I don't know. Yin Nuoxing shook her head. You should ask the others. I haven't dealt with this kind of information for many years. Hui smiled bitterly. He had forgotten about that. He just said that Feng Hongjiu needed to focus on the confrontation with the high-level primeval. There were many things he was responsible for before, but now he did not have the time to deal with it. The frontline world is developing well. It was Yuan Kong who spoke. She slowly stood up and reported softly. The origin energy's transformation of the frontline world is faster than the void frontline, but it may be trillions of years before there is a significant qualitative change. In the current situation where the origin energy covers and affects, more than 80% of the life forms can directly come into contact with a weaker origin energy, and about 10% of them can use the normal origin energy. 10%. Hui frowned, scratching his cheek. That meant that 10% of the life forms could remove the fusion between the energy in their bodies and the origin energy. But it will take a long time before they can fully use the origin energy and reach the level of inheritors, right? Yuan Kong spread her hands. It is the power of the origin god, after all. According to what you said, this thing is not for everyone to come into contact with on a large scale. This is equivalent to mass-producing inheritors of origin, and the time it takes is extraordinarily long. It is the same even if they come into contact with the origin energy from birth. Hui smiled bitterly. It took Brother Lei and the others a few eras to become inheritors from scratch, and now they are mass-producing inheritors in the frontline world. Well, there is no change. It will still take a few eras, but this time it is not one by one, but a group of people, a group of inheritors. I want to take a look a few days ago. The progress is quite good, but it will take a little time. Brother Lei's voice rang from the soul. In the beginning, all life forms can adapt to the environment where the origin energy exists. Then, some people began to be able to mobilize the origin energy, then touch it with the body, and finally transform their own energy. It is a step-by-step process, and there is no way to skip it. Are you sure it will only take a little time? We could not help but grumble. Yes, it will only take a little bit of time. Brother Lei grinned and smiled bitterly. It will only take 1 or 2 eras. Judging by everyone's condition now, 1 or 2 eras. The eavesdroppers could not help but repeat. Whether the void frontline could hold on for 1 or 2 eras was entirely dependent on whether the other side would go crazy or not, and it was not up to them to decide. Since the last time when the 20 high-tier primeval charged and broke through the front line, they knew that even if 2 eras had passed and the power of order had increased a lot, the fact was still the same, and there would not be any change for the time being. If we insist on holding on, we can still hold on. Right now, We're not in a situation where we're being suppressed by them. If they dare to come again, I guarantee that they won't be able to return. Brother Lay snapped his fingers in response. And let them break half of the void blockade again. Then this time, we will retreat directly to the third defense line. Huey's teeth chattered. Well, speaking of the third defense line, we suddenly changed the topic and looked at Maple. Maple, can the third defense line be directly transferred here? If the two defense lines are combined, it will increase a lot of power, right? Yin Nuashing shook her head without thinking. I don't have time. It will take a lot of energy. As long as I'm facing off against him, I will not have time to control the third defense line. Hui and the others smiled bitterly. However, you can transfer it, but it will take a lot of energy. You may need some time to deal with it. Yin Nuashing tilted his head as he spoke. However, this way, we will have no way out. We will bring the last line of defense here. By standing here, we will be announcing our final strength to them. In the future, as long as there is any defeat. Yuan Kong's body trembled a few times, and her pretty face turned pale. It will mean a complete defeat. Then forget it. Let's leave some hope for the future. Hui smiled bitterly. Yin Nuashing nodded slightly. Before she turned her gaze back, she suddenly said, "How long will it take for you to reach the high tier? 3 or 4 eras?" We could not help but smile bitterly. That was almost the 58th and 59th eras. Whether the void front line could last that long was another matter altogether. Even for us, it's about the same. Brother Lay could not help but smile bitterly. He could not help but mumble, "Brother Maple, this speed is already very fast. In our current state, the strength of the void is still, if that is the case, 3 or 4 eras." Yin Nuashing nodded slightly and sighed faintly. If we can't do it perfectly and find the one and only one in the billions of stars, we would rather defend this place than fall in vain in other places. And remember the billions of moments. Bid farewell to the countless times of the past. Embrace the void and sleep here forever. That is a sliver of life derived from billions of worlds. Can you capture it? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.